Oh, I guess we're live.
Well, there we go.
I wasn't prepared for that. I guess I should have been. Hello,
Yeah, it's just
everybody.
because we're a
Welcome to.
couple of boomers here.
Oh, I don't know. It's been a week. I have to tell you. Uh, just when you think things couldn't get any worse, they came for Warhammer.
I know.
Anyway, let's go. Hail to the might. That is the Geeky Geezers. That means you, Aged Boomer, and Last Call with Troy Pacelli. That is correct.
Thank
And
you,
you can
thank you.
catch Troy Pacelli and myself every Friday night on his channel at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we had a wonderful talk about all the upcoming movies from the major studios. Did you remember any of that? I know you had that Bloody Mary.
Oh, yeah. No.
So you're excited for the Dirty Dancing sequel that they have in the
you
works.
smart ass. I wasn't that drunk.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
Not drunk enough to put baby in a quarter. Let's just put it that way.
Well, funny man.
Oh my gosh.
Why are they doing a sequel to Dirty Dancing?
Why are they doing a sequel to any of this stuff?
Make original
Seriously.
stuff.
Look, I am going to say, and I've said this for a long time, there are some movies that deserve a sequel, but there should only ever be a sequel if you feel that there was story that was left to be told. There have been a number of films and whatnot where you're like, I want to know what happens next. That's worth telling a story about, right?
Yeah.
But if you have no story to tell and you're just going to kind of retell the same story from another point of view or for another generation or whatever, don't do it. Don't bother. Go do something new.
Like Dawn of the Dead, I always wondered what happened after the end of Dawn of the Dead. Did they make it somewhere else?
Well, that is, we kind of obliquely touched on this on Netter's Network when we did the
remake.
Simo remake, yeah.
Right.
But remakes are a whole other ball of wax. I'm not applying the same logic there.
Right.
But sequels to a remake is still a sequel, right?
Yes.
And I actually did kind of get into this a little bit with Big Al last night talking about Snowpiercer. The story is told, okay, and there is no question what happens next. I mean, it was Snowpiercer. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you should have been with us last night watching. I'm just going to say, and it is implied. The ending appears like they're trying to say, "Oh, these characters survive. There's hope." Right?
Yes.
But even the tiniest bit of thought that you put into it, it's like, no.
Just don't.
No. They're going to live for a while, but they're not going to live long, and they're dead, and it's all bleak, and I'm sorry, there is no story there. Some stories are like that, Speaking of, welcome.
Have a great show, my friends. Welcome, Big Al. Thank you. Let me see. Welcome, Crispy. As I said, I've done a stream with Crispy on the channel about Castlevania. We'll be doing another one at some point about Contra, so keep an eye out for that. I'll let you know.
Oh, looking forward to that.
Some time. You know what Contra is?
Oh, yeah.
It's like the sister series of Castlevania, but
sure.
it was instead of being a platformer, it was what we call a run and gun. That's a genre, run and gun. And it was paying homage to 80s action movies like Terminator, Rambo, Aliens, all that stuff. Yeah. But we'll get into that at some point. Hail to the might. I already said that. Never mind. Well, thank you anyway for the good things.
Absolutely.
I wonder if Mr. Matchstick is in here. I'm sure he's got some thoughts on the Warhammer thing. I felt bad. I sent him that clip of the ending of Phantasm 3. I sent that to you.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "Run! It's all over."
Yeah.
The kid's there, and then the tall man pops out again and says, "It's never over," and that freaked me out because they killed the tall man again, and he still came right back. They come up with clever ways of killing him that should work, and this should be it. Okay?
Right.
Like in the one they shoved, they filled him up with formaldehyde, and he burned inside out and fell apart.
Well,
that should have done the
when
trick.
you're dealing with these supernatural situations, it's like, is it really even possible? I mean, the biggest one is like Freddy Krueger, right?
Yeah, that's
Freddy
another one.
Krueger is literally a figment of your imagination. He is a dream. All it takes is for someone to be aware of him and dream about him for him to come back.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's true.
JPRPH1.
That's interesting. I know that's how that worked. JPRPH1, welcome. Horizon Talker, welcome. Well, stay for as long as you can. We got a lot of topics to talk about tonight. In fact, we got to start moving. Zootopia, welcome. Depensec, welcome. Connie Cleary, always good to see you. Joshua V, welcome. Natters Network, I get a hi, sweetie. Thank you.
Of course, of course.
And did I get everybody? Or are people still hanging out on Deleted Scenes channel?
I was going to say, I just saw deleted scenes here.
He was running late, so he probably went over.
He says
there he is.
unscripted raid, and I was going to say, that's...
Oh, there we go.
Mind,
Here's everybody.
If we start late, it's because, unscripted ran late. So
Gotcha.
Make sure you're... When we say, at the end of every show, and we're talking through the week, and we say, unscripted on Sunday, and it's the lead into to Geeky Geezers. Well, you really should be watching it then, because if you're sitting here twiddling your thumbs waiting for us to get started, well, we're all over it unscripted.
Yeah. Welcome Zootopia. Welcome Sashi. Let's see here. Lady Mist, always a pleasure. Let me see if anybody else is here. I got a hi, sweetie, from Netters Network and Connie Cleary. I think I already said the. Okay, if I missed anybody, apologies, but keep sending in comments. Right. We got some pertinent subjects tonight. But first, before we get into our modern times... Yeah,
let's take a step back.
Let's take a step back to the past. And here we go. This is kind of loosey-goosey, kind of like the thing on Friday. I'm like, you know what? Let's talk about game stores of the 80s. Yep. And I tried looking for shots of game stores from the 80s, and I couldn't find any. And by game stores, I'm referring more toward RPG stores, tabletop game stores.
Yep.
We used to have one in the mall, in the Woodbridge Center Mall in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and it was called the Game Room. I think it's still there. I think they have a few of them, and it was tabletop games, also stuff like billiard tables. So it was like any kind of game. Not really a video game store, though. They did have a couple of arcade machines, cocktail arcade machines in there. And I remember walking in, and I would always hear this. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I kept hearing it from the machine. Not till years later did I figure out that's from the video game Arkanoid.
Oh, okay.
But it was mainly a tabletop store. I think I bought my copy of Dungeon there, the famous TSR board game version of Dungeons & Dragons. This was the revised version that came out in the 90s. But this is a shot of this may be a modern day game store for all I know. But you go in there and you buy games. You buy your tabletop games.
It doesn't matter. Wait, back up one. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if this is modern day or 1980s or the 90s or the early aughts. It all looks like this.
Yes.
So that's perfectly fine. Notice up in the left-hand corner there, you have Warhammer, Dark Imperium. We'll be talking more about Warhammer later.
That's why I decided to pick this as the good old days topic. Because I'll be honest with you, I thought of two things in these shops mainly. It's D&D and Games Workshop. Those were the two things that would pop in my head when I would walk into these stores. And I wasn't even necessarily a huge D&D person. I mean, I did play it on occasion in high school, but these were always cool stores to go into, though. And whenever I was in the mall, I'd want to stop by the game room whenever I was going to buy anything, just to see what they had on the shelves. It's interesting stuff.
Yep.
This is an old-fashioned D&D display from the 90s, though. Gateway to Adventure. Does this ring a bell to you at all?
Yeah, maybe not. Absolutely. Now, those particular... Yeah, actually... I didn't have those particular books, but one of the DMs in our group absolutely did. I was more of the, what do they call it? Beck something or other. The box sets of the various DMs.
Right.
Before it went advanced and, there's a basic expert companion, expert, so... Beckney, I think, is what it was called, or something like that.
Okay, but I think it was called. I think my people I knew used to call it Basic D&D Basic. I think.
Right, exactly.
Now, did you have a favorite game store you would shop at? I'm just out of curiosity.
Well, you did say. Hold on a second. I did. You know what? I can't type and talk, so I'm just gonna, take advantage of the fact that I'm on the panel and just say, you know what, Samuel Proctor, we just appreciate the fact that you are here. So thanks for making it.
Thank you, Sam.
I know you've had a difficult time. Look at those the character sheets. So this is a great. I don't know if you intended this when you showed this, but those character sheets were there, not for sale. Because if they were, you bought them in like a portfolio. Mm-hmm. Those are photocopies of blank character sheets.
That's nice.
For the gamers there.
Playing the game.
I need a character sheet. They go and grab one. You know? That's what those were there for.
So I take it this is a complimentary thing, but don't go and take the whole stack. Sort of thing, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, and most people really
unless you had that many people with you in the store to play the game, maybe.
Exactly. And that's why. But honestly, they could if a dungeon master was running a game and needed a bunch of character sheets, yeah, they might take a whole stack of them. Might happen.
But if they're in the store,
they're different. In the store, and they could run off more too.
Yeah, that's
different. That's really what it was there for. I did not see. You said specifically 80s, and I wasn't going to these shops like this during the 80s, but once
the 90s. Okay.
When I got into college, so late 80s, early 90s, I started going to the place that it's still there. I mean, it's right here in my stomping grounds, Mount Prospect, Illinois, a place called Games Plus.
Okay.
It's like a corner hobby shop. I mean.
Yeah, a hobby shop. That's another way of saying it, yeah.
I mean, it's a hobby shop in that... I mean, back in the day, a hobby shop might have more things like... what would you call them? Like model kits and,
right.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And,
yes.
Other kinds of crafty type things. And then they would have some games and so on and so forth. And they were trying to diversify. Games Plus is clearly games centered. And the extent to which they have, like, model kits and whatnot is more geared towards miniatures and stuff that you would use for gaming and stuff like that. And, of course, that's kind of blown up a little bit since, things like HeroClix came out and, it's different variations and those customizable card games. So a lot of card games, Magic the Gathering and so on and so forth. But Games Plus was the big one that I went to. I didn't actually even go there to game initially. I went there just because it was the place I would go to pick up my D&D supplies and modules and stuff like
right.
that. And then, just like any other, you go into a toy store, you go into a hardware store or something, and you start looking around and going, ooh. Look at all the great stuff, right? I really need this rotary saw. I don't know why, but I need it. Same thing with a lot of these games. And if a franchise was doing its marketing the way it was supposed to, the way it should have done, it had a role-playing game. I see Indiana Jones right there on the bottom shelf. Conan right above that. All the Dungeons and Dragons. All the different flavors of Dungeons and Dragons. So there's those Beckneys right underneath where it says adventure gaming. You got basic, expert, companion. I think that's... I always forget the other two. There's Immortal and there's another one. Masters Beck Me. That's what it is. So
I like how they're color coded though. That's kind of neat.
Are.
Yes.
So it went basic, expert.
I had that basic set, by the way.
Companion, Masters, and Immortals. And a lot of people never quite got to the Immortals because you literally went up in levels high enough to become like demigods, your characters. But what you see across the bottom there, you see, of course, Greyhawk, which was the first campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons. Right next to that is the Star Frontier, which was basically your sci-fi version of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's cool.
All the way to the right, you have Boot Hill, as you can guess. That, of course, was the
military?
Western. No, the
Westerns.
Western style Cowboys type a role-playing game from TSR.
So they were trying, if you have different flavors, I knew another one they had was Top Secret. That was more like spies and espionage.
Top Secret was
like
the
that.
spies, exactly. Yeah. And so now really all you have is Dungeons and Dragons, and then they did, what's it called? Like D&D Modern or something like that? Or,
what is that?
it's basically the same rules for D&D, but you could use it for anything. You could set it in a modern setting. You can set it in the future. You could, and there were rules, expansions that you could do for 6 shooters or for ray guns or for, military weapons or whatever. So you can set it in whatever your setting is,
I'm thankful there's still a few of those kind of game stores around my neck of the woods. Yeah.
And here's another thing. What was great about these places is not only were they selling this stuff, this was very, very smart. They would have a room or a section of the store or whatever with tables laid out so that you could have standing you played every week and you didn't have a place to play because your mother wouldn't let you take up the old dining room table or whatever,
or the basement.
Yeah, exactly. You could come to the shop and you could play the game there. You didn't have enough players, you could pick up somebody right then and there. Hey, we need another player, to play a. We don't have a cleric in our group. We really need a healer.
And there's some kid in there. Well, I've never played D&D before, but I'll give it a shot. There you go. Yes.
And the idea was, and I don't know how many times this would happen, but I'm sure it happened from time to time. Can I go play? Yeah, you can go play. And then some way through the game, Mom sees him being social, hanging out with the kids and whatnot. And, okay, so you want me to buy this game for you? Okay, and now she's buying a big stack of books.
Well, that's it. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the finale of Freaks and Geeks, the season 1 finale of Freaks and Geeks?
I actually never saw Freaks and Geeks.
All right. The idea of the show is it's about, you guessed it, freaks and geeks.
Makes sense.
And it's the older sister of the family. She's part of the freaks, like what the Joe Flattery character would call the burnouts, but they were into rock music and stuff like that. Maybe, I think sometimes maybe dabbling in certain organic drugs.
Yeah, they were the emos, the burnouts.
The 1980 version of these. And then you had the geeks. Well, at one point, one of the cool guys, or at least the freaks, he's kind of in the finale. He's played by James Franco, and he's kind of on the down and outs. Like he can't set up the projector when he's punished, and he has to set up a projector in the room, and he can't even do that right. And he's like, I suck at everything. Yeah. And then finally, one of the guys who's hosting a D&D game with the geeks, and he's like, why don't you come play D&D with us this weekend? And he's like, I don't know about this. And then he plays a dwarf, and his name's him Carlos, and he says, Carlos. And he says, what's wrong with Carlos? Nothing. You can name him whatever you want,
Yeah.
And it turns out he's very good at D&D.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, the geeks are like, is he getting nerdier or are we getting cooler? And they said, let's think we're getting cooler. Okay. That's
yeah, exactly.
And that's how it ended. So you never know. Maybe
I do kind of like that concept. That is pretty cool. And now you look at, and you know what? I know there's some people that are going to bristle at this, but I don't care. I keep looking at Henry Cavill and thinking, you know what? He's the cool guy who wanted to go play D&D with the nerds. He definitely seems to be that kind of guy. And we'll talk more about him later on in the stream too. But they're going after everybody that likes anything genre related at all. They really are. The gloves are off. They hate all of us. They really do.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into it. But I did want to share with you, some of you may not be aware that these stores did sell other things besides D&D. Right?
Oh, yeah. They sold stuff that they didn't tell anybody about in the back room, and you'd hide it when the cops showed up. Is that not what we're talking about?
You're talking about games.
Oh, sorry.
Do you remember this one? This is still D&D. Remember the electronic Dungeons & Dragons game? Did you have this? Or
I did not have it. I knew of it. And I knew one guy that had it. We never played it. I don't even understand the concept. I know that it was... Dungeons & Dragons, TSR trying to expand the game in other ways. But yeah, this was some sort of an electronic game. And
my brother had this. To be fair, I don't think I ever played either, but I used to mess with it because I didn't know how to play it. But you get these little plastic pieces, and it could be 1 or 2 players, and I guess maybe how like you have electronic chess, you play this and like landing on different parts. You'd have these metal pieces that you'd use to press on the buttons, and like there was a treasure chest, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of neat.
I always imagine that it was there were probably some similarities to that game. Was it called the Dark Tower or something like that?
Kind of, yeah. Dark Tower was better though.
I love Dark Tower. Oh my gosh! In fact, I've got the game Dark Tower. It's just the piece that you need, the big electronic piece in the middle, is broken, so I can't play it.
Did you know? Apparently, someone online made a phone app, and I don't. It may even be a free phone app, which replicates the Dark Tower.
Really?
Yes, for like a smartphone. Yes.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, you could like maybe
because right now I would love to play the game, but I just can't. You know.
Yeah. So here we go. This is Talisman. I don't know what this is, but it's a games. I think it's a Games Workshop game, unless I'm mistaken. I always wanted to buy this. I'm like, I want to get into something, but I don't want to get into the things that I didn't want to ape off other people. So I'm like, I never hear anyone playing Talisman.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody knows what this is, but you know what this is?
That's another one of those ones that I saw on the shelf, and if you didn't already know someone playing it, you didn't have enough exposure to it
to be able to play it properly.
Yeah.
Here we go. That's the original Warhammer, not 40K, but that's an old school 80s version
Warhammer
of it.
Warhammer Armies.
I suspect if I ever did play Warhammer, I'd probably go with the orcs. I'll be honest with you. I don't know.
Keep in mind, Warhammer grew out of this kind of armies combat system. Dungeons and Dragons did too, actually. Dungeons and Dragons started out, I think it was called Chainmail or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was basically just combat games where you weren't playing individual characters, you were playing groups of characters. Yes. And over time, they slowly added magic to it. They added, the different classes of characters and stuff like that. And eventually it ended up becoming a role-playing game because people wanted to get more and more granular with it.
Yeah, I think it got produced out of these war games, combat games.
Exactly.
You know who was into those, like the pre-D&D stuff? Peter Cushing.
Oh,
he used to collect figures and play the war games. Yes,
it was real big in Britain. And let's face it, that came out from everyone who was into the military in any way, shape, or form. Actually, these kinds of combat games go back to, pre-Napoleonic era.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
they would have terrains and miniature, lead miniatures of troops and stuff, and you'd have not complicated rules, just little pamphlets of tables and whatnot, and there was always dice involved because there had to be some random elements.
Right.
And you would say, okay, well, this is the strategy, and you wouldn't tell, of course, the other guy. You'd plan out your strategy. You might have a referee who would say, okay, move your pieces and resolve combat, and then next turn. And it's always been like that. And there was always that element that actually was directly part of combat. You watch these old World War II movies, right? And you see that the map laid out and you have the pieces. Well, that's real world version of, what people would do in peacetime, kind of imagining war strategies and whatnot.
Well, no, I mean, it's probably keeps your mind sharp too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it teaches you strategy. Oh, yeah.
This Hero Quest, or is this something else? Looks like Hero Quest.
It looks like Hero Quest. In fact, look, I never actually played Hero Quest as Hero Quest. I had a buddy who had the Hero Quest, and we used all of these items and terrains and markers for D&D.
Yeah. It's interesting. Games Workshop made a thing called Dungeon Rooms, which you could use for any role-playing game. Sure. And I had a set of these, and they were very neat because they looked like miniature rooms, like you're looking at it overhead. And some of them are very creepy looking, like you have like a soldier's barracks, but then you'd have like a sorcerer's chamber with forbidden stuff in there.
I like this because it gives you a really good picture of what the room looks like without going to super extremes. I mean, I've even done miniature dungeons and whatnot. You get the full walls. You have the little trap door that swings open. All this kind of stuff.
That's cool.
You don't really necessarily need any of that. You just
don't use your imagination. Yeah.
Something that says, well, this is where the chair is. This is where the desk is. This is where the fireplace is. These are the walls, but there's no actual walls there. You just see them, written off on the map.
Yeah.
Because you have to go in through the door, and here's the archway.
There you go.
And can I see him? Well, can you? No, I'm looking through a wall. No, of course you can't. Okay.
But no, it's good to ask those clarifying questions in case it's not absolutely clear. Right.
In a situation like this, what you'd probably be doing more of is, I forget this spell. Do I need line of sight to use it? Kind of stuff. Yeah.
There are other RPGs back in the day besides Dungeons and Dragons. So you had this one. This was called Chill, Adventures into the Unknown. This was a horror-based RPG.
Yes, it was. I never actually played the game, but I had one of the modules from it. And it was great graphics. Mm-hmm. And I read through it. And
like this?
Yeah, exactly. I read
coming up out of the grave, yeah.
And I just took the scenario and converted it to use with D&D. A lot of these games you really could. It was intended for you to use it with their proprietary rule set, but there's nothing that said you had to. As long as you could take a zombie and pull the zombie statistics from your own game, you could because all you were doing is adapting a scenario, a game scenario,
And look at this. This is Highland Terror. Is that Nessie? Is that what that's supposed to be?
Probably, almost certainly. And tell me that wasn't intended to evoke the Beckney D&D players,
Probably, yeah. Here's a board game they made based off of that called Chill Blackmorn Manor.
Wow.
Which was a really cool, which was a tile-based board game, which I think was the basis for a modern tabletop board game called Betrayal at the House on the Hill. But Call of Cthulhu, this was the other big horror one. So this was more traditional horror, like vampires, werewolves, a Frankenstein type monster. And this was more Cthulhu mythos, H.P. Lovecraft sort of stuff. So this was the other big horror RPG.
So I gotta tell you something about Call of Cthulhu. So I knew of Call of Cthulhu going all the way back. Cthulhu is, there's a similarity to Dungeons and Dragons in that it is a role-playing game. This one being set more in the
like 1920s.
Well, it could be set anywhere from the 1890s to the 1920s. Yeah, that was
actually they even had one called Cthulhu Nam, which was set during the Vietnam era, which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
And let's face it, anyone who knows their Cthulhu mythos and the various films and so forth knows that you could even bring this up into the modern day and whatnot. But this is not like Dungeons and Dragons where you expect your character over time to advance in level and get more and more powerful and probably retire someday as a lord of some castle or something like that. No, it was pretty certain that your character was eventually going to go insane and die. That's really, it was a very fatalistic kind of thing. So you just had to expect that. In fact, your character might not last one single game session, It's just the way it was. But I'll tell you, I loved it. And I played it a little bit. Great Old Ones, of course, being the expansion that talks about the gods of Call of Cthulhu. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot of friends that played it back in the day, but I didn't have it, but a buddy of mine had in his monster manual, and there's a lot of legend that goes into this D&D book. It had the Cthulhu mythos in it, so it had, while it had like Zeus and all the Greek gods, and it had all the Egyptian gods and Celtic gods and stuff like that. It also had the Cthulhu mythos and
like Nyarlathotep and Yog-Sothoth and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
And unfortunately, I guess it was a rights issue, so they had to stop production of that for a while. But in the early aughts, this company, Chaosism?
Chaosium, yeah,
Chaosium?
Yeah, I think so.
They were able to work out a licensing deal where they put out Cthulhu for the D20 system. So basically, you bought the D20 Cthulhu book, and it was a big, chunky book, right? And it had all of your Cthulhu mythos stuff in it, including the background and how to play and whatnot. And it was all in the D20 system. The only difference was it added, because you needed to have that element of going insane. It had, so you'd create your character just like you would in Dungeons and Dragons, but you'd also create a sanity score, and instead of it being like 3d6 or 1d20 or whatever, basically where your score is anywhere from 3 to 18 and then modified, you rolled it on percentile dice, and you didn't get any modifiers, and over time, ultimately, that score would go down, 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 down until you eventually went insane.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That's how some of these stories would end in the original H.P. Lovecraft.
Exactly.
The Doctor Who role-playing game by Feza. Remember this one?
Feza, yeah. My buddy in high school, Otto, who got me into Doctor Who, had everything he could get his hands on for Doctor Who, including this role-playing game. We never played it. He had wanted to, but he also kind of didn't want to, because he was kind of like me, being a purist about canon and stuff. He didn't want to, monkey around with the established characters and
well,
stuff,
I thought the idea though behind this game though was that there's another Time Lord like the Doctor Who's that was another thing. He doesn't have to.
That's how you would normally play it, yeah.
And then there'd be another Time Lord that you're working with, or maybe someone. I don't know if the Time Lord would serve as the DM, or you could play as this other Time Lord. And
that brings up two different what do you call it? Thought philosophies on role-playing games related to established IPs. There was Doctor Who, there was Firefly, there was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Star Trek, which is also from FASA. Yeah. So you could either create characters that existed in that same world, and that was particularly easy with Star Trek. You were just a different captain on a different ship with different adventures, right? Yeah. Or there were almost always in the main books the stats for the mainline characters. In theory, you could play those characters. You wanted to be careful because it's like, do you really want to completely break from the canon? But the other element of it that I always thought was, if you want to make a character like Spock, well, here's what Spock's stats look like. Right? So in what way are you similar to him? In what ways, are you less experienced than him? In which ways might you be more skilled than he is? Stuff like that. Compare Spock to Sarek or someone else who's a pure Vulcan. How are they different and so forth? So it also is a great way to kind of, I know these characters. This will be a guide for me to understand the rules and how the characters are set up and stuff like that. So
and you could get modules for these. Like you could get an expansion for the Klingons and one for the Romulans. I think I had the one for the Romulans back in the day. Why did I buy that over the Klingon one? I don't know.
Yeah.
Romulans, the Klingons are better than
you didn't know. Klingons are great. I got everything that was Klingon.
You know what it is? Because you always hear about the Romulans. Well, I know the Klingons, but the Romulans keep hearing. And I'm thinking now, as all these years later, I'm like, the Romulans have never impressed me as much as the Klingons.
Yeah, I gotta say that the role-playing game is a little bit infamous among fans because it was released in this period where literally all the canon we had of Star Trek was the original series and a couple movies.
Yep.
It was all that original series era, and so there wasn't a lot of backstory, and the role-playing game filled in a lot of canon that didn't match up with later Star Trek. This is where we get the idea that the bumpy Klingons that you saw in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, those were the Imperial Klingons. Those were the purebred Klingons. And the ones you saw in the original series, no, those were genetically augmented for infiltration, which was, I always thought, the stupidest thing. It's like, well, if they're genetically augmented for infiltration, why are they on Klingon ships wearing Klingon uniforms? You know?
By the way, though, you have these cool cross sections, though. You see?
Yeah, I really loved this artwork. Yeah, that is some infamous stuff, and a lot of this, you know, like I said, they made up their own canon in a lot of ways. They introduced races that couldn't exist in canon. In fact, they used from the Star Trek animated series. They pulled in, of course, the Caitians. You know, like Lieutenant Marass, which is fine. They've been used in the movies. They've been used in Star Trek Online and so forth. But then if you tried to use, like, the Kzinti, yeah, you can't do that because that's Larry Niven. That's not something they could publish.
Oh, interesting.
That slaver weapon that they talked about in that one episode of the cartoon series. No. That's so the Star Trek Online wanted to kind of homage that, and Star Trek Online came up with a completely different anthropomorphic cat race that was like an offshoot of the Caitians, just like the Romulans are an offshoot of the Vulcans, and you know, so many others. To fill that role, but they're I think they're called Pharason or something like that, to kind of get around that whole thing.
Drew up the Star Wars cross section books. Yeah, I don't know if that was inspired by these. Yeah,
I've got them all, and they were one of the artists that did a lot of the work for these cutaways for Star Trek. He also did some of the books for Star Wars. His name was Shane Johnson. And he did a great job, but he also kind of made up canon for himself, and this was especially necessary when you did stuff like this, because especially with Star Wars ships, you have an idea of the layout of, like, let's say, for example, the Millennium Falcon, right? From looking at the sets, looking at it, and then when you compare what's inside to what's outside, it doesn't really always fit. So you kind of have to, you know, warp this one section and squeeze it down and shrink it or grow it and stick it in there. No, wait a minute, isn't that where the engines are supposed to be? You know, so yeah. And any modelers who are trying, or like me, diorama makers, have run into that and gone, okay, how am I going to fudge this myself? You know? But,
well, you do what you can.
Yeah,
I always
exactly.
I remember in high school, some kid had the TNG blueprints, and he said, there's only one bathroom on the Enterprise. These blueprints.
Yeah.
Here we go. DC Heroes role-playing game. Remember this?
I hated the rule set for this game. It made no damn sense. But in fairness to the people making this game, they were trying to include a rule set to squeeze together everything from, you know, Batman and Robin, who had no actual powers, all the way up to Superman and Darkseid, who were like gods, you know, and everything in between. I honestly think, though, that Marvel did a better job with that. They had this very interesting way of talking. Yeah, there you go. They had a very interesting way of talking about power levels that they still use to this day over at Marvel. You know, and there you go. That was my first exposure to Captain Marvel. That was my Captain Marvel.
Look at
Monica Rambeau. That's right.
I don't understand this. They're paying her respect back in the 80s? What? You know, it's like...
Yeah, they tokenized her in the movies.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. No, she's up there with Spider-Man, Captain America, and the Thing. Look at that.
She really, really was in the comics. Yeah. Everyone loved her. No one had a problem with a black female Captain Marvel character. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, she was the successor to Marvel, who was a beloved character in fandom that got done incredibly dirty in that Captain Marvel movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, his was a wonderful, tragic story. He was a great hero, greatly he was like kind of like a Superman type character
of his
in the Marvel universe. And how does he die? He dies from cancer.
That's horrible.
And it was a big, the death of Captain Marvel and this and that. Just like the death of Superman. All the heroes were in mourning and went to the funeral and stuff. And
well, they say the cancer story, I guess, for Black Panther in the MCU, right?
Oh.
Just everything they've done wrong. I did want to make a point, though. This is a DC module. I love this cover. Wheel of Destruction. Who do we see there? It's the Joker. Look at that.
Yeah.
Instead of Wheel of Fortune, it's Wheel of Destruction.
I literally have that module. I have just about everything from this era of the DC. And again, I wanted to play it. There was a solo adventure that came with the mod. That was my introduction actually to the Teen Titans. I had no, I knew of the Teen Titans.
They were introduced on the cover. Yeah, I think they're even there, right? There's Starfire right there.
Yeah.
And this is a module for Marvel Superhero. This looks really cool.
I had that one too. Yeah, I had that
this
one
is
too.
That's arcade.
Yep.
Here's your Joker for Marvel. Look at that. Look at
basically,
that.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's right. And this is the Fantastic Four in the era when She-Hulk had taken over for Ben Grimm.
Yeah, look at that.
Hey, Leia Rose.
Welcome, Leia Rose. We're just
did
talking
I say
about
hi to
old
Matanui
RPGs
earlier? I hope I did.
Matanui, welcome. I don't know if we got a chance, but welcome to the chat. But and of course the Ghostbusters role-playing game.
Let me tell you about this Ghostbusters game. This was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It was as fun an adventure game as any of the others, but it had that tongue-in-cheek element, very simplified rules. And let me tell you, these books are very hard to get now. They're expensive on the secondary market. You're better off finding a PDF of it. Yeah.
Hot Rods of the Gods. You like that?
Yeah. West End Games, who did Star Wars.
Yeah.
Look, it wasn't just West End Games either. It was taken over by another company, and then I think it went to a D20 system. I have all the iterations of the Star Wars game. Played them all. Star Warriors that it mentions in the upper right-hand corner. That was the early version of the combat simulator, the ships and whatnot.
I like the cover. I mean, it's Return of the Jedi, but that was a good pick.
Absolutely.
It's good when you lose the great original artwork instead of making up your own covers for
exactly
the DVDs I have of these movies. Don't get me started. Okay. I think I end with Cyberpunk. Yeah. And this was, of course, more based on, I don't want to say like Blade Runner, but like this was like, I mean, of course, we had the Cyberpunk video game that came out recently. To some, but this was, I think, trying to make it more cyberpunk. And of course, there were other RPGs I didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, but I figured
Cyberpunk really came into its own right around that same time that Blade Runner.
Yeah.
A lot of people just made that immediate connection between those two. This very
William Gibson fiction, I think that's his name, right?
Yeah, future noir type of gameplay. Absolutely. Kind of a grim, dark future kind of story. Great stuff. But these shops, BattleTech, that was another one.
Forgot to mention BattleTech, but no, that wasn't the one we saw. Yeah, that was like an American version of like a mech type game. Like
exactly. I used to play BattleTech over at a buddy's house when Netter and I were dating, and shortly after we got married too. Netter and I went to Gen Con one year. And we were, it was our first time there. We really didn't know what was going on or whatever. And on the last day there, we were waiting on a buddy of ours, and we had some time. So a dungeon game master or whatever came out of the game floor and said, "Hey, is there anybody? We need 2 players for Call of Cthulhu game." And I looked at Netter, and I'm like, "We got the time." And she's like, "I've never played before." I said, I actually don't know the rules that well either. Goes, "Doesn't matter. You'll learn. This is perfectly introductory level. It'll be great." And sure enough, it was. We loved it. It was wonderful. Netter had a great time. We both died horribly. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing. That's part of the fun is learning rules, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like I said, learning a new game. Netter and I for a while we'd be going to, like I said, to Games Plus, and you with Games Plus you'd have a game night, or a game day or whatever, and they'd have like I don't know 6 tables of different games. Oftentimes they were games that were newer, so you didn't have to worry about, oh, I've never played that game before. That's fine. Nobody is going to have played this game before. You have someone there demonstrating the game. And the one game Netter and I went to play, and we got a free, starter book that they gave you to take home with you. It was some sort of a zombie game. I don't remember what it was called. Oh. But here's the scenario. See if this sounds familiar to you folks.
Let me see.
You wake up in a hospital, and there's nobody around. You ring the bell for the nurse. Nobody comes. The IV in your arm is dried out. Yep. So you pull it out. You have a horrible headache because you're dehydrated. And now you go wandering around. And it was, if I remember correctly, and this was happening to however many people were sitting at the table. This was your scenario. Yep. And you gave the background. How did you end up in the hospital in the first place? I was in a car accident. I was a cop and I was shot. I was a whatever. And it might have something to do with the template character, but you made it up, and then you run into each other, and then you start to discover you're in the middle of the apocalypse. Yes, Jesse Guahara, though, it was the scenario of The Walking Dead. Now,
not just Walking Dead.
This 28. Was 28
days later, the same thing. They probably both took it from this. Yes. That makes sense now. Yes.
Well, I'm not sure, because let's remember, Walking Dead had a comic book that was out there before they made the show, and I don't know which came first.
Comic book, though, I read the comic book. Comic book wasn't that old. I want to say it was post 2000. When that comic book came out.
Oh, so this game might have actually predated
it. Probably, most likely, both the creator of 28 Days Later and Walking Dead both knew of this module and decided, I'm going to throw that in there as a tip of the hat to this.
But think of it this way. Yes. Think of it this way, and I've said this about these games before. A lot of these tropes that you see in movies have got to be coming from these games. We didn't even talk about Vampire the Masquerade. This concept that there are vampires out there that could totally take over the world, but if they did, you don't want an apex predator to outnumber the prey. Exactly. They'll starve to death. So, and that's the other problem. If you have intelligent prey, they could, if they know about you, they'll rise up, they'll fight against you. So the vampires create this masquerade where they infiltrate either the royalty or the government or businesses or whatever. So they always have a controlling interest in the power structure, but they're the minority, and they strictly control themselves in who can create new vampires so that they never overpopulate. How do you prevent yourself from being wiped out by the cattle, right? From them rising up?
Yep.
Well, you keep them stupefied. They don't know that vampires are real. In fact, they think all the folklore and everything that they've heard about, it's all just stories. And they make movies, and exactly. We make it fiction. And if you ever let a human know that vampires are real, we'll all turn on you and kill you because you threaten us all. Well, that concept now has become a big part of all of vampire lore, but it kind of started with Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes. No, and that was a big RPG system. RPG system. So was Shadowrun. That was another one I didn't mention.
And Jesse makes an excellent point. It's kind of what I was leading up to. To be honest, tabletop games are a good way for people to learn storytelling. Absolutely.
Yep.
Part of and I think people telling stories for modern audiences could definitely learn a thing or two from games. What do games do? They make it interesting by setting limits on you. If you ever play a role-playing game and you are the most powerful, you have no flaws, you have the strongest abilities, the best weapons and equipment, unlimited resources. Well, there's no game involved. Okay, well, you just won Dungeons and Dragons. Congratulations. You're a god, and no one can oppose you, and there's no story, there's no stakes, there's
What's
nothing.
The point? It's a
and
game.
That's kind of what they do these days. When we bitch about Mary Sue's, this is the kind of thing we're talking about.
Maybe they
it has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with gender, you dumbasses. It has to do with storytelling. Something that too many people in the entertainment industry don't know how to do anymore.
Exactly. It's just it's obnoxious. Anyway, let's go ahead and go. Well, I think that wraps it up. Do you got anything left? I think you ended off on a good thing. That in some ways storytelling evolved from this movie, also the Mary Sue. I didn't think about that.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, this is where it comes from, that concept of the Mary Sue. It was fan fiction, which was always derided because it was, so, bad, right? For these reasons, but also because, of gaming. Because gaming really is, what is it? It's fan fiction, you know? But by giving you game rules, and this is what I always pointed out when people would start doing this, it's like you're losing the game element. If it's not a fair game, it's not a game anymore. You're just mentally self-gratifying to be YouTube friendly, Yeah. And that's no fun for anybody.
Yeah, it's not fun when someone's invincible, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Speaking of Invincible, we can skip over In Memoriam today because I don't have one, so we don't have to be.
I'm waiting for Big Al to chime in and say something.
We do have an In Memoriam.
Who?
The Weeknd died. It's gone. It's over.
We are at the end of the weekend, but we will talk more about that, I'm sure, over on Deleted Scenes channel because he's the other side of midnight.
Welcome, Curtis Selby. You're just in time for us to start with the news stories. We were talking about old game shops and RPGs of the 80s and beyond. Yeah. But
if there's going to be an In Memoriam, maybe we should do an In Memoriam for Lara Croft's boobs.
The luscious Lara Croft. I mean, the lady Lara Croft. Okay, here we are. That's an old app. Tomb Raider 3. We improved everything you asked for, and then it has all the stuff they improved underneath. But sorry, still no nude code. I thought that was funny.
Which is kind of funny because the fact that there was a nude code, I mean, that was very much of its time. Every game since then, you just have people out there.
I think that was a PC thing where some guy hacked something or something, though. I don't know if that was even that was never in the console version. I can tell you that.
Oh, I'm sure of it. But that's just it. In the PC, I think gamers all know this. In PC versions of games, there's always a patch you can find and download.
Right.
To make characters nude, to make them, especially in The Sims. The Sims, holy crap, they have whole animations. That takes it from T for teen to M+ for absolutely mature audiences only.
I understand. I believe you. But unfortunately, I was recommending this collection a little while ago. Am I still recommending this? I don't know, because unfortunately, there's been a patch for Tomb Raider 1 through 3 Remastered. Guess who downloaded that patch? Because they said, hey, we're some bug fixes, and here's a leopard print outfit for Lara Croft. And I'm like, okay, I want that leopard print outfit. Oh, but there was a trade-off, apparently. Yep. A recent patch for Tomb Raider 1 through 3 Remastered Collection patched out some Easter egg pinup posters that were present in the original. Not only were they present in the original, but they were seemingly brought over with more high-res detail in the remastered product, leaving some fans wondering why Aspire and Crystal Dynamics even bothered. To begin with, Lara Croft has been one of the most iconic femme fatale characters in gaming ever since her first game came out in 1996, and the posters were a well-known detail among fans. Yeah, these would come out in magazines. But when Tomb Raider Remastered released earlier this year, fans were happy to see the posters managed to make it in without being cut by Aspire. But 2 months after the game's release, Aspire seemingly went out of their way to remove the posters from the game intentionally. Fans were hoping that the game would be uncensored after Crystal Dynamics added a content warning to the collection, which empathetically states that they would not be removing content. I don't even want to read the stupid preface they had. But yeah, and you can buy it now on current consoles if you so choose to want it. Keep in mind, whenever if you buy it now, those posters will not be in it because whenever they have a patch, whenever you download it post-patch, that's the version you get. And there is no physical version of this that was released of this particular collection with the remastered graphics. Now, I have a theory behind this. I think Melanie Mack had a theory. I think I'm borrowing from her. She basically said she thinks it's Crystal Dynamics interfering with this collection because to make a point, why bother putting the posters in to begin with if you were just going to censor them 2 months later? Exactly. I think they probably put them in. See, in the original game, the posters are there, but they're so pixely you can't even make out what they are, but they're clearly a nod to what was going on in the popular media at the time. So she's in a locker room and you see these posters of her on the wall. It's just a wink at the audience. That's all it is. And in this version, since you can play both the original versions and like this remastered version that has, more cleaned up graphics, you can actually see the posters as they looked in the magazines.
Right. Which meant they had to upscale them in the first place.
Yes.
I mean, they literally would have to go in and upscale the individual posters.
So, my suspicion is this wasn't Aspire. This was Crystal Dynamics interfering. I'll leave it up to you if you don't have this collection. You still want to buy it. I mean, it is just a couple posters, but again, makes me very wary of downloading any more patches for this game in the future because I'm not going to know if it's just for bug fixes or if it's to actually cut content out. And this has happened with some of these digital games in the past as well. I remember I had a Capcom Darkstalkers collection on the PS3, which had some artwork. I guess some of the artwork was risque in the thing, and they did a patch that took it out. And it's like, I already paid for this. I owned it. But, you come in here.
This is one of the things that I've railed against, and there is no solution.
There isn't, unfortunately.
The fans are over the barrel on this. If you want the game, you are at the mercy of these companies because you can't just buy an original disc or something, upload it to, or install it to an offline PC and play the game and not be bothered by this stuff. It is directly integrated with their systems, and they can take it. They can literally take the game from you at any time.
I am going to say this, though. The modding community, at least for the PC version, maybe the version you get off Steam, you can get a patch now that puts the posters back in. So if you have it on PC, you can put it back into the game. Yeah. Some fans said that. Now, I'm sure that they'll probably be railing against that. But if you do have the PC version, you might be able to actually put those back in. I just think it's BS. Again, I don't think this was Aspire's decision because it doesn't make any sense. Why would they put it in to begin with? I think this is probably Crystal Dynamics. I think Crystal Dynamics hates the original Lara Croft. I have a horrible suspicion of what they're planning for with their new version of her coming out, and we'll discuss that when that gets announced. But, it's a shame, though. I'm sure Michael French would have his own thoughts on this, but this poor character has been mistreated over the years. And she used to be a quote-unquote feminist icon, not so much these days, but... looking nice in the sad, though, I have to say.
Well, and this is what I keep telling people too, especially the feminists, but all of the I support the current thing. Just remember, the winds of change abruptly, and when you think you're on the right side of history, suddenly the pendulum swings, and you're sitting there going, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, Just a couple of little posters. There was no nudity. One of them, she's not like in the one, like I think she's topless, but she's back down, so you can't see anything. She's like looking up from the bed, like
right,
that's a
exactly.
Pose women have done in magazines all the time.
But
another
again,
one was just her lying in her traditional Tomb Raider outfit. That's all.
Well,
it was.
It's this whole idea of we can't have attractive women. We got to uglify them as much as possible.
I'm horrified about what they're going to do to her in the new game. And their new redone version that's going to be coming out.
Remember, regardless of what you believe about, our voting system here in the United States, there's always two ways to vote that they can never take away from you: voting with your dollar and voting with your feet.
Speaking of which,
it is incredibly powerful.
And that kind of leads us into our next article, which is, of course, the big news story of the week. Pity Mr. Master here. I'd like his thoughts on this. But Warhammer 40K fan site attacks players as bigots for disliking female Adeptus Custodes retcon. Well, yeah, if you call it a retcon, there was no print. Anyway, yeah, this was from Park Place. I have another article to go into real quick too. Okay, let me go and I'll start reading and I'll fill in any of the blanks because I've been following this all week, and I know Deleted Scenes I talked about this a bit too. Now, of course, I don't play Warhammer 40k myself. It's behoove me to tell Warhammer fans how they need to be reacting to this, but from my point of view as an outsider, this is the same thing that's gone on in other fan communities where they're just basically attacking the loyal fan base and doing all sorts of nasty things. Warhammer 40k fan site Bell of Lost Souls and writer Abe Apfel attacked Warhammer fans as bigots for disliking Games Workshop's retcon and subsequent gaslighting of the Adeptus Custodes. In the upcoming Codex of Adeptus Custodes, an excerpt reveals that Games Workshop introduced a female Adeptus Custodes into the lore after the faction had previously been all male. Yeah. This was a retcon from previous lore, as noted by former World of Warcraft team leader who shared previous entries regarding Adeptus Custodes that makes it very clear that it was an all-male organization.
Yep.
Games Workshop confirmed the retcon, but also chose to gaslight its own fans and players by claiming that there have always been female custodians. The company posted on X, since the first 10,000 were created, there have always been female custodians. Now, the fans got very angry at this because they know the lore. They've read the codexes that your company has sold over the past 30 years, and they've read it. And I'm sorry, it gave up clear thing that there are no female custodians. And my impression of Warhammer is that these custodians are like a version of warrior monks. Okay, so they're going to be an all-male cast, just as there are all female class as well. So you have female casts of warrior women too, but they're not mixed in with these particular male casts. That's not how it works. That's my impression, at least. Correct me, anyone in the chat, if I'm wrong. But numerous Warhammer hobbyists and enthusiasts have since canceled their Warhammer Plus subscriptions and indicated they are boycotting Games Workshop over the retcon and the gaslighting. Mm-hmm. In reaction to this, Apfel wrote an article on Bell of Lost Souls titled Warhammer 40k, Only Bigots Hate Female Adeptus Custodes. Within the article, he says, "Oh no, women are coming to ruin 40k. The bigots need to get over themselves about female Adeptus Custodes."
And that's fine because, you know, only bigots are upset that all Wakandans are black, right?
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
And only bigots are upset that only female Amazons exist, that you can't have male Amazons, right?
This is people. It's not even just about them changing the lore. It's also about them telling, "Well, that's the way it's always been." People know it wasn't always that way. Like if this is something new, like in this timeline of where we're now going to allow for female custodians.
That is the same kind of stupid bullshit that tells you that these modern people that have come in and taken over have no idea what they're even working on. It's no different than Kathleen Kennedy coming in and saying, "Well, we don't have volumes and tomes of books." To tell us, the stories in between. Yes, we do, you dumbass. You specifically wrote them out of canon because you were too lazy to read that crap. But then the cowboy without cows, who's all hat and no cows, comes in and starts cherry picking from that EU because he can't come up with ideas of his own.
Let's see. The Adeptus Space Marines are heavily genetically modified humans that has a 50-50 chance of male could survive and almost impossible room to survive the process. Well, that sounds like there's a lore reason for it. And like I said, they probably felt later on, okay, we'll give females their own factions as well. And there are female factions in Warhammer. So you could play as female characters in these games, I assume.
And this would be no different if they decided that you had to have, Vinny Villeneuve hasn't gotten this far with Dune, but if he was to decide that the Bene Tlaxu had females among them. No! It completely undermines the whole story behind it. Because female Bene Tlaxu are mind-dead female bodies used for incubation purposes. There's a whole feminist story arc there that you would not want to undo.
Anyway, this asshat was going on later to say, "Oh, the lore's never been 100%, or there's unreliable narrative." And I said, "No, you guys have put out codexes and materials explaining how this world works, even if it's evolved over time. And when there were retcons or things done, they were made with with reasonings.
Yeah.
And maybe you could have thought of a reason for this one too. I don't think." Though we know that was the reason to be doing it, but then they said it's always been that way, and shut up. That's what they say. What they said.
This is exactly right, because they always underestimate the fans. They say, "Oh, it's always been that way," and the fans are like, "Well, actually," and then they start bringing the receipts and quoting from their own books, and then they're like, "Well, this is a retcon then." It's like, no, then this isn't Warhammer anymore. I know Warhammer. This ain't it. We're done. Goodbye.
Yeah. By the way, I made a point on Deleted Scenes channel, and here, 40K fans that are upset about us, you can still enjoy 40K. Just maybe figure out a way around giving Games Workshop your money directly after this.
Yeah.
But still enjoy the hobby. You got your miniatures still. Frankly, there's other ways to make miniatures outside of Games Workshop.
I have been saying this. I have been saying this for years, right? This is actually the problem, and we'll be getting into this more when we start talking about Hasbro later on. But the fact is, once you buy the initial books, you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
You really don't. And nowadays, you don't even need these companies for their miniatures, because there's people out there on Etsy that are doing 3D prints that are better than what they're putting out, and they could do them custom for you. You tell them, I want this character, but I want, this style face. Can you take the mustache off of that, or put the beard on like I've got and stuff like that? You could do that.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Though, just I want to say, Troy, if you want female Space Marines, there are the Sisters of Battle that use power armor, and there's even a group of Sisters of Silence that are apart from the Sisters of Battle.
No. They got to have men in their ranks now, because we gotta even it out. And sometimes it's not even men and women. Sometimes it's genetically altered so that they could be both or part way, or they decide they want to change their gender.
Did the fans complain about these factions being added? No, they probably welcomed them with open arms, because it was kind of consistent with the lore and made sense in the context of this universe.
And again, it takes away, because when you have these kinds of stories where you have battle groups that are separate genders, what is that? That is an allegory for the actual, feminist versus, neoconservative, arguments that go on in the real world. This should be supported by the feminists.
I don't get it, but I think even these factions will work with the Marines at times too, because they both serve the Emperor. They just do it in different ways. Right. But here we go.
And then there's the element of I know we were just fighting the other day because we're on opposite sides, but we got leave and you got leave, and let's hook up.
I don't know if that's allowed. I don't know if they're. I have no idea. I don't know if this is like a monk nun thing or if this is something else. I mean, it's just weird. The British are
maybe
weird.
We shouldn't get too far into that, because we can talk about monks and nuns.
Anyway, let's not go there. Let's move on to This is the next article. It's part of this. Okay.
Yeah. Let me.
Sisters of Battle Loki hate Space Marines because they are borderline mutants. That's interesting. Okay.
Oh, so now we also have the purity element of
I'm sure.
and that is necessary and important. Look, you can't go into these kinds of things and just clean them up and take out all the conflict because your sensibilities. If you want to do that at your own tabletop, fine, but the lore is what it is. If you don't like it, don't publish it anymore. Just give up the license and walk away from it.
My impression that this is not a nice universe you want to be living in, no matter what side you're on.
That's exactly right.
These are not necessarily nice people.
I mean, if nothing else, then the conflict isn't that you guys are fighting to make the world the way you want it to. That's part of the struggle and the conflict, right? But again, like I just said, if you don't like the lore, just walk away from it. Give up the license. Just go bankrupt and put it away. Honestly, by doing shit like this, by de facto, that's what you're doing, because you've lost your audience. They won't buy from you anymore, and that's the end. Goodbye.
This next
But 30 years from now, you will still see Warhammer being played at the game stores because people have the old books and are still playing it.
There you go. And people can make PDFs of the old books, and maybe there's even a way around this miniatures thing. It's just And like you said, sometimes the fans make the best stuff. Who knows? They may end up being better quality than what Games Workshop puts out.
I'm telling you that's one of the areas that these miniature games are struggling with. Is they've been very slow to put out new products that players want. So the players are out there making it themselves on 3D printers and then making those 3D prints available to other fans.
There you go. Just you. A lot of you can do manufacturing at home. I think you have a 3D printer right now.
Yes,
don't
I
you?
do. In fact, I actually was gonna tell Netter I got some models of some Star Wars ship interiors and whatnot that I want her to print.
Oh wow!
For me. Yeah,
I'll have to show those to us.
I've got the that scene the detention block from Star Wars.
Yeah.
I just got that. I'm gonna have.
Oh, that'll be cool.
And what's cool about it is it prints it out. You don't have to make it exactly the way it's modeled because, like the what do you call it? The desk or whatever it is. The situation normal. Everything's fine here. How are you? That area. That's a separate piece from the floor. It's separated from the walls. The cameras, so that you can print out more of the cameras and use them in other portions of a Death Star scenario and whatnot.
That's neat.
And because it's 3D print, you can print out as many as you want.
That's always useful, especially if you need more parts. I just want to say Jesse Gardo says that he's a noob compared to when it comes to 40K, and he knows it better than the people at Games Workshop. Yeah, or the people running Games Workshop are not the people that started it. And I also notice a certain financier has a 10% controlling interest in Games Workshop, and that group is BlackRock.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm noticing a pattern here.
Well, and I'm noticing a pattern that goes get woke, go broke, and it really is. BlackRock is even starting to realize this.
He was screaming at some meeting. Larry Fink. Yep. Awful person. I'm sure he doesn't do tabletop games for fun. He probably goes to an island somewhere. Anyway, I didn't say that. Anyway. Another enthusiast.
He plays with different miniatures, is what you're saying.
Let's not. We joke, but we don't know what these people do when you have this much money.
We're not really joking. We are disguising our disgust with humor.
I'm just fed up. Anyway, from the other article, though, I'm just going to read real quick. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is another enthusiast posted in reaction to this retcon. It says, that's all it is. Many don't care about female custodies. They are upset with the lack of respect, upset with the disregard being shown, and it feels like it's going beyond that. It's starting to feel like outright contempt for the fans, because it is.
It is.
And I'm sorry.
Well, especially when they outright call you istophobes for not liking what they do. Yeah. It's like, well, that's fine. You don't need my money. Bye. It really is that simple.
It was also suggested the decision was clearly made to intentionally cause friction and nothing else. I agree with that. As multiple people point out, the Sisterhood's battle and sister signs already exist as powerfully portrayed female factions. They are underrepresented, and no one would actually mind if anyone wanted to improve them. Critics were also condemned in response, however, with remarks such as, the issue seems to be more like you're afraid of women, and getting this worked up about a retcon is intensely pathetic behavior. I was watching another channel, too, and I think the host was pointing out that, I mean, it was critical. Like, if it's not a big deal, then why was it a big deal to do it to begin with on your side?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And what you're basically getting at is, you are deriding your own product. You're saying this is stupid shit for nerds that you're wasting your time with anyway. Why do you care about this? And then when they start thinking that way, they go, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll just stop playing it and go do something else. And guess what? Now you're broke and you're all out of work. And then 6 months from now, you're all saying, yeah, I'm out of work because of all the istophobes and blah, blah, blah. It's like, and you have learned nothing.
I am starting to wonder if the people doing this stuff, if their intention is merely just to destroy these properties, to make people to play them miserable, and to make us all feel like worthless peasants. I'm really starting to wonder if that's what this is all about.
I've said this with every one of these are neo-Marxists. This is what
Yeah.
they do. They destroy, and they think they have a reason for it. They think they're bringing out about a new, Marxist utopia. But the reality is they're no better than the Joker who just wants to see the world burn.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen over and over and over again in history. It's not going to change.
Yeah. Well, I hope we would learn, but it seems like we're in another impasse. Is it Hasbro? Jessica Court asked. Funny you mentioned that. That's what we're going to talk about now. Hasbro.
Yeah.
There was a rumor going around that Games Workshop is doing this stuff to make it friendly to bigger companies like Hasbro, saying, "Look, we got the ESG stuff in Warhammer." It's like Hasbro ain't going to be able to buy your Warhammer. If that's what you're thinking.
That's exactly it. It's like, well, I'm glad you did that because we're going out of business.
Okay. Oh, why did I go?
You guys know where I am with Hasbro. Let's get into it.
You're not happy with them. Okay, so
I have not been for a very, very long time.
Will Hasbro stay afloat or swim? Oh, will Hasbro sink, stay afloat, or swim? This is a pretty big deal, actually. Okay, so in a recent interview on NPR's Here and Now Anytime podcast, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox delved into several key topics, shedding light on the company's recent layoffs, the shift toward games over toys, the fallout from leaked D&D changes, and the issue of overproduction in Magic the Gathering. Addressing the layoffs that affected 1,100 positions in December, including senior employees at Wizards of the Coast, Cox clarified that the bulk of the cuts targeted the toy sector. However, he acknowledged that Wizards of the Coast also felt the impact, citing evolving priorities within the gaming business. Sorry about that. I lost my place again. All right.
Do we have to teach you how to read all over again?
Maybe we're getting there. Maybe I'll be a vegetable by next week. Okay.
You know what? You just need to drink more.
You know what? I might take you up on that.
See?
Games have been growing at mid-high to single digits for the last decade, Cox explained. Toys have been growing more like single-digit basis for the last 10 to 20 years. A lot that has to do with birth rates and kind of like the changing nature of play. Increasingly, people are playing at older and older ages. They're playing well into adulthood, but they're shifting to more games at early ages, both tabletop as well as digital games. Okay.
I hold right there because I want to. So there's two sides to this. Partly I agree. We do have kids. They're not buying the action figures anymore. They're playing games on their phones and they're doing other things. They're not as into toys as we are. That being said, the decisions that these toy companies have been making for 10 to 15 years, maybe as much as 20 years, has been pushing the kids out of the market. They have been specifically targeting the adult toy enthusiast, and they are literally putting an end to the generational sales. Very, very short-sighted. And as their adult fans die off, so too will their business. That is the problem. Star Wars is a microcosm of this, right? Because right now, the only ones that are buying things are our generation are buying the old original trilogy stuff that they put out. Our kids are buying all the prequel era stuff that they put out.
Yep.
But they did not manage to get the next generation. And this is Hasbro as well as Star Wars Lucasfilm, right? They did not capture the next generation. We've talked about this on my channel and on here and on other places too, where when The Force Awakens was released, all the promos, especially from the toy companies, was anticipation. There was a lot of stories that the commercials were showing the father bringing the daughter, and the daughter being resistant, and then she loves Star Wars and they bond over it, right? And it's like, yes, that's what every parent wants. And the kids, honestly, kind of want something to be able to share too, and they want to be able to, but it didn't do that because the parents rejected the new Star Wars, the kids rejected the new Star Wars. We'll get into that a lot
Star Wars
in
later,
another story later on, but it's all relevant because it's happening with and that affects toy sales. Now Hasbro, there was even an article we talked about a couple weeks ago where they said, look, we're being saddled with this license of having to put out Ray and Rose Tico figures that are going directly to Ollie's. Nobody's buying them. You can say the same thing about Marvel, the Riri Williams figures and the Captain Marvels that nobody's buying. And that is costing Hasbro money on top of the license. Disney doesn't care. They get their money up front in the licensing fees, and they can't put out enough Tony Starks and Luke Skywalker figures, and it's killing them.
Iron Man's very popular.
Yep.
They should have quotas on figures, though. You can't overrepresent the male heroes. Right.
That is the problem. They actually do. It's funny you say that because they actually do. That's
insane.
Now, it may not be as granular as that, but it is, for every, Tony Stark figure, you've got to put out this many Riri Williams figures.
So you're required. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's
if you're going to put out an original trilogy Star Wars figure, you got to put out, a sequel trilogy figure. And that's what's killing Hasbro. But, they're not helping themselves by, a lot of their decisions, too.
Here's an extra emo Kylo Ren figure you must put out. I'm sorry.
Did you know I did buy a Kylo Ren figure?
Oh, okay.
I bought a Kylo Ren figure because I wanted to pick up the Force Link that came with it.
Oh.
Do you know about this?
No. Oh, the little toy thing. Yes.
Yeah, it was a little electronic thing you wear on your wrist, and every time you would pick up an action figure, it would do sound effects and recorded voices of those figures. At least the figures that were coming out at the time. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And there were some. I picked up a couple figures from the Han Solo Star Wars story, the Chewbacca and the young Han Solo.
Mm.
There's some serious problems with this stupid thing. You have to. It doesn't work right out of the box. Once it links to a certain toy, it won't let it go and pick up the chip inside the new toy. So you have to download on your phone. You've got to download a patch, and there's problems with the patch too. And I'm like, this is a POS. So no wonder kids hate this crap.
This stuff has to work.
Yeah.
Did nobody see the movie Big?
Oh, God, that's Hanks? A great example.
We'll talk about this another day. Remember, he goes to the toy company. He's like, "Why do you always make the thing worse? They always change the toy and make it worse later on." It's like,
right
now he's an adult working at this toy company. He said, "No, the kids want this. They don't want."
And that's the irony of that story, because the whole for those of you that didn't see this 40-year-old movie, it's about a kid who makes a wish that he could be big, and he wakes up the next morning as Tom Hanks, and. Now that I think about it, this probably doesn't age very well, some of the humor in this movie. But the idea is he's still a child, but he's in an adult body. And so he ends up going and getting himself a job. Accidentally, he's seen playing around with toys as an adult in a toy store by the executive of the company.
Yeah.
And he's got great insights. So he ends up, getting hired. But it's like, here's the problem with that, though. They would never listen to somebody like that because they don't listen to the fans. It's not like they can't find out what kids want. It's not like they can't find out what the fans want. We're friggin' telling you. We're yelling and screaming it on YouTube and Twitter.
This movie came out. The internet. Now you have everybody tells you.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hasbro's Magic the Gathering woes. On the issue of the collectible, would that have to do with you sending Pinkerton to somebody's house?
Yeah, exactly, right?
On the issue of collectible card game Magic the Gathering's potential overproduction, Cox defended the game's expansion, attributing it to novel casual play formats and broadening player demographic. Notably, he pointed out that the player base for Magic boasts a substantial 35% non-male representation, slightly lower than D&D 45%. Moreover, Magic the Gathering fans are expressing frustration over the increasing cost of the classic card game, blaming Hasbro for making it too expensive. With a constant stream of new products being released, fans feel pressured to keep up by purchasing these cards, leading to financial strain. Analysts have been criticized Hasbro for prioritizing profit over customer goodwill, causing a backlash within the Magic community.
We have talked about this before too, that Hasbro, and look, I always am going to default to it is not a mutually exclusive concept. Giving the fans what they want, right, and making a profit go hand in hand. They are not mutually exclusive. In fact, to do one, you have to do the other, right? So yes. And when it comes to how much something costs, look, this is economics 101, people. The price of things rises as high as the market will allow. And when people stop buying, maybe you need to start lowering your prices. The market won't manage that anymore. But when it comes to this focus on the adult collectors, Hasbro has completely lost the script. Because the problem is that the adult collectors focus on collectors, right?
Yeah.
They are paying 2 and 3 and 4 times the market price on the secondary market to get that old figure that they don't have, that they didn't get back then, right? And Hasbro is, I'm thinking action figures, but it's true with Magic the Gathering too, the cards and whatnot, right? And Hasbro looks at this and goes, well, we want in on that. So they then start to put themselves into they're the primary market. They want the secondary market too. So what they do is they artificially create scarcity and then charging the inflated secondary market prices. And when you start doing that, now the fans go, whoa, bullshit. Because now all you've done is you've created a high premium price up front, which means the secondary market is going to be through the roof. And now I will never be able to get that one card or that one figure to complete my collection or whatever. So it's not worth it at all for me anymore because I'll never be able to get that. I'm done. I'm out. I quit. And now you've got nothing, Hasbro.
This article goes on to say Bank of America has also warned over the last few years that Hasbro has been ruining and diluting the Magic brand.
Oh yeah.
As a result, they've downgraded the brand's stock value. So this is not the fans saying this Hasbro. This is Bank of America. This is your financiers or whatever, the people that do. I mean, this is. Are they in denial of all this? This Cox fellow?
No, they honestly don't understand a lot of these things that I've just said. These basic economic concepts. They don't understand their market and they don't understand their customers.
Now we move on to D&D. Regarding the controversial leaked and then dropped alterations to the Dungeons & Dragons open gaming license in early 2023, Cox asserted that despite the initial backlash, the brand's overall satisfaction metrics remain positive, indicating resilience against potential damage. This was combined with the disappointing box office performance of the movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. This led to the layoffs just before the Christmas, primarily in the toy division, that affected over 1,000 jobs. If the company is doubling down on its commitment to tabletop and digital gaming as it celebrates D&D's 50th anniversary, in his interview, Cox highlighted the growing popularity of their board games and D&D adaptations, pointing to the success of the video game Baldur's Gate 3, which won the top prize at the 2023 Game Awards and sold over 10 million copies.
Okay.
I heard the development team left that company. They were pissed about something, though.
Pause right there. Okay. First, you start citing awards, I say bullshit. Because awards don't pay the bills.
It was a successful game, though.
Relatively, but they still have layoffs. It wasn't successful enough. See, they're focusing on all the wrong stuff. You have a problem, and you're gilding the lily, saying, "But this and this and this." And if I'm if I'm the CEO or whatever, I'm like, well, that's great. You can take that award. And you can go stand in the unemployment line. Because that's exactly what's happening. These people are getting laid off. Because there isn't enough sales. It is, for as popular as they're saying it is, apparently not popular enough.
Let's see. Despite setbacks, Hasbro remains optimistic about the future of gaming properties.
Well, of course they're going to say that. What are they going to say? Oh, we're scared to death. We're going to lose our jobs. Our company's going bankrupt? No, they're never going to say that in an interview.
The success of licensed mobile games like Monopoly Go and Record Props Magic the Gathering considers the company's diverse portfolio and adaptability to changing market trends. But how long can Hasbro rely on Magic when frustration has begun growing among the fans?
And I will just point out that, again, if it's just coming down to the people playing these games, the games are out there. They already have them. They don't need anything new from Hasbro. There is a whole customizable card game printing community where people are making custom cards, making duplicates of hard to find cards. Now, you can't use those at tournaments, but the tournaments are more and more people getting out of them and saying, screw this. Because
make your own tournaments.
For completely other reasons. There is the whole gender/trans problem with these things, and literally pushing kids out because, you know,
use the wrong
we talked about a they them situation, and it's like, you know what, we're done, we're all done, and it all leads to this kind of so sink, stay afloat, swim. It is sinking. They are desperately trying to keep their heads above water, and they will drown if they don't change course very, very quickly or get bailed out.
I think people looking ahead this is the future. You want to know what the future is?
Yeah.
Okay, now you'll know what to look forward to. Looking at Hasbro's vision encompasses both traditional tabletop gaming with blockbuster digital experiences. With investments in entertainment spanning Hollywood movies, TV shows, and video games, the company seeks to captivate audiences across generations and mediums. Recently, in an attempt to increase its brand awareness, Hasbro announced it is teaming up with Frito-Lay this spring for a joint promotion focused on family fun. Through TV, digital, and social media platforms, the brands are showcasing how snacks and games can bring people closer together. Meanwhile, it seems that Hasbro has lost touch with how the market of toys and toy stores has been evolving in a culture that's been groomed with social media, apps, and mobile games. With this shift, it appears that the toy market's troubles are only beginning. Okay, so it doesn't end on such a happy note there. So what do you think?
In reverse order, starting with Jesse Guajardo, no, I don't think Hasbro's heart will go on and on. I think it's on life support, and they're going to flatline if things don't change. Mr. Matchstick, yes, we did talk.
We just talked about 40K.
Not only did we talk about 40K and Games Workshop, but we did say we did give you a little shout out saying we wished you were there because you probably have a thing or two to say about it.
Anyway, maybe another time we'll have you talk about it. I'm sure the 40K thing is going to get worse from here. So I'm sure we'll have other news stories
Definitely
about it.
Definitely rewind and listen to it, and then drop your
comments.
Drop a comment
drop a comment on the rewatch. Let me know.
Yeah.
But what will Hasbro's heart go on? That's
it's going to flatline, no doubt about it.
That's very funny. Let's move on.
But Hasbro also owns the license to the Star Wars for action figures. But now we're going to be talking about the gaming side.
Ubisoft has already come
broke is what you be.
Oh, man. Ubisoft has already come under fire for single-player games, Star Wars Outlaws having a season pass. The fans are expressing frustration once again upon noticing its highly anticipated Jabba the Hutt mission is locked behind it. As reported by Spanish outlet Area Jugones, Ubisoft's website outlined the content season pass, an optional extra to the $70 price tag. The game already cost you $70.
So this speaks directly to the same kind of thing I was just talking about with Hasbro, with Hasbro and Magic, right? You can't have it both ways, right? Either you are getting your money up front, or you're getting it on the secondary market. And when translating that to gaming, either you're selling a game for an inflated price and getting your value up front, or you're selling downloadable content and a game pass and whatever. You don't do both. this is how you get people to sign on for those game passes and stuff. You make the game free.
And
then you say,
cheap.
But if you want this and this, you got to pay this. And there's benefits to the Game Pass, and that's how you rope them in. It's no different than a drug pusher that gives you your first.
I have a prediction. $109.99. Yes, you're right. $109.99 Gold Edition, and even more expensive $129.99 Ultimate Edition. I have a feeling you're going to buy the $129.99 Ultimate Edition. You're like, okay, at least I'm set for all the content. And then it says, oh, we've now announced the Season 2 pass that's going to cost money. Because keep in mind that season passes, you can have a Season 1 pass, a Season 2 pass, a Season 3 pass. But apparently, I did want to make a correction here that this is just one of the Jabba the Hutt missions. Oh, there'll be others in the game that you can play in the base game. So... Right.
But if you want to play any of the new ones, you're going to have to pay for them. And you're going to have to pay for them. Man, you're going to have to pay for them.
This is nickel and diming of a game I already don't want to buy. And
if we can, I'll say this about the games. I'll say it about the toys. I'll say it about all of this. One of the things people also have to realize is we are in a very, very desperate financial situation, most of us. And I've lived through this. I've talked with, the previous generations that have lived through this. The first thing to go when you start tightening your belt are things like toys and nights out, on the town. You start eating in more. All the unnecessary fun things you used to enjoy, you stop doing. So it is not smart for these unnecessary companies putting out unnecessary products that are the first thing to go when finances get tough, to start raising their prices and trying to, antagonize their audience. That's the best way to go out of business. It really is. And I honestly think that Ubisoft is just flooring it and driving off a cliff with this.
Ubisoft peaked with Black Flag. I don't know if that was before or after Rayman Legends, but that was around the same time. Yeah, that was basically it for them. Black Flag was an Assassin's Creed game set in the pirate era, and many people thought that it was so good that it really just should have been its own series.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be tied to Assassin's Creed, but I forgot this was the Jabba the Hutt pick that I was using for the Ubisoft thing.
I've got that.
I had this too as a kid, remember?
And I've got several successive ones after this.
Black Flag was 2012. Hold on, now I got to find out. I'm wasting time. When was Rayman Legends? Give me a second, people. Bear with me, will you? Please bear with me. When did Rayman Legends come out? When did that come out?
Don't want to miss
2013, 1 year later. Yeah, for me, it was Rayman Legends. That's when it was over for Ubisoft. Really liked that game. I thought they were going to do more like it, and then no. But yeah, basically, we're just warning you that if you want to play this particular Java mission, you got to fork up the cash. If you want to play as this character no one's heard of.
Right. And nobody likes.
They could have brought Dash Rendar back from Shadows of the Empire.
No, because that stuff doesn't exist, right?
Oh, that's right. They decanonized that, didn't they?
Right.
Oh, never mind. Disney Star Wars box office. Here we go.
This is what we were saying all along. We said it. Doomcock said it.
Midnight's
Pro.
Edge, I'm sure.
Valiant Renegade. We've been saying this all along, and all the trolls had come out. No. The budget was this. It made this. It's made money. Okay, well, let's get into it.
Box office profits generated by... I truncated this, so if I missed anything, fill in, all right? I'm sure you've read this, but box office profits generated by Disney Star Wars movies have fallen $2.8 billion short of covering the media giant's purchase of the sci-fi saga's creator, Lucasfilm, according to analysis of recently filed financial statements. Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion in 2012 and soon gave the green light to a new trilogy of Star Wars movies, which teamed up rising stars Daisy Ridley and John Boyega with Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and the late Carrie Fisher, who headlined the original movies more than 30 years earlier. article then goes on to talk about, what was it, the tax incentives they used for going to shoot the stuff over in England, I believe.
Yes.
And I think they made the point that did help them a bit, but I think also these movies kept running over budget anyway, though, right?
Yep. Yeah, and see, this is and for those of you listening to Valiant Renegade, you would know this, and I think most of you guys, because you those of you that are here, you guys are above average. You guys are the thinking audiences. You're not like the trolls. The trolls, don't understand and they refuse to listen. But Valiant Renegade gets into the numbers. And he points out that there's a lot of shenanigans that go on here in Hollywood. They tell you what their budget is. They don't tell you how much they actually spent. But when they go over to England to get all these nice, thick and juicy tax benefits for filming over there, one of the trade-offs is they have to go public with their numbers. So we're able to see how much money they actually spend and how much they actually lost.
And it's not not covering the cost of the purchase.
It is not. It is absolutely not.
The declining interest in Disney's initial trilogy of movies seems like a distant memory, and the mouse has made the most of it. Last month, Disney released a 67-page presentation singing the praises of its chief executive, Bob Iger, and a bid to convince stockholders to side with him in a battle with activist investors. I notice how it's always activist investors if they're wanting the company just to be normal and make money. But BlackRock are not activist investors insisting on...
Like all neo-Marxists... Like all Marxists, they are capitalizing on the twisting of word meanings. Yeah. Activist investor in financial circles literally means someone who doesn't just passively invest and wait to see what happens, and if it loses money, they just sell their stock and walk away. An activist investor invests in something, and then when it doesn't make a profit, he turns and looks at it and says, "Why?" And then steps in and gets involved and says, you will start getting profitable. That's what an activist investor is. They're not activists as far as politics. They're activists as far as the investment goes. But they're counting on the average person thinking, oh, activist, he must be, a Trump supporter, he must be a this, he must be a that. Whether he is or not is completely irrelevant to somebody wanting to make money. Because guess what? The Democrats want to make money too.
Yes.
They're every bit as corrupt. Rich people, you pay attention. There's some shenanigans going on there.
I haven't noticed.
Right?
One of its key boasts was about the supposedly spellbinding return on investment generated by the franchise that Disney acquired under Iger. The presentation gives the impression that Disney's Star Wars trilogy generated 2.9 times return on the purchase of Lucasfilm, as the figure is presented next to a timeline of key events in the production company's history. They include the release of the Disney movies and its acquisition of Lucasfilm, which is the only milestone marked with a star, adding to the impression that is the fact that the other end of the timeline is the Star Wars logo and a photo of the Mandalorian with his little green friend. However, buried in the fine print is the revelation that the purchase price of Lucasfilm isn't even included in the ROI calculation. Instead, it's purely based on box office performance of Disney's Star Wars trilogy, its two spin-off movies, merchandise, Disney, and Blu-ray sales. Mm-hmm. As revealed, the methodology is questionable, as Disney based the ROI on the revenue generated by the movies, merchandise, DVDs, and Blu-rays, rather than the profit they've made, as it should have done.
Yeah.
Using the revenue rather than the profit artificially inflates the result, as it doesn't factor in the costs that Disney had to pay out to make this stuff, like the incessant reshoots. Even this wasn't enough for the media giant, so it also forecast the revenue that it expected the Star Wars movies, merchandise, DVDs, and Blu-rays to generate over a 10-year period, and based the calculation on that too. In other words, Disney hasn't actually received the revenue that it used to calculate the return on investment. Summary.
And they're not going to, and I can tell you why. You just pointed to Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yes.
And so from the toy, and again, I get granular, but I think this is generalizable to the bigger business model. in the toy field, I was just watching Bosk's Bounty. He released a video today talking about every Sunday he answers questions from the fans, and one of the questions was about, are there any figures that are coming out that you just bang your head against the wall and say why? And he said absolutely. He said we have enough Grogus, we have enough Mandos, you know, and when they keep putting out the same figure over and over again with a slightly different paint thing, there's a Mando that's coming out, Beskar armor with a backpack that he didn't have before, and it's like, we don't need. I myself have a whole now. Of course, I do a lot of action figure customizing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I will oftentimes, when I see Tungori put them up for cheap, I'll maybe buy 3 or 4 Mandalorians and I'll repaint them and make other characters out of them. But we don't need more Mandos. We don't need more Grogus. We don't need more reprints of... And yet, the fans are going, what we do need more of, believe it or not, is the most recent versions of the Stormtroopers. When you put out a Stormtrooper with better ankle articulation and wrist articulation, stuff like that, or the clone troopers with a head that doesn't look like it's 12 sizes too big or way too small. When you get the right size head and all the articulation, make the shit out of that figure. Put it out in 4-packs. Put it out with different card backs. Put it out. And just, that's how you make your money, you know? But they're not. They're putting out a bunch of crap that nobody wants anymore, you know? Because they don't think it through. They don't know.
No. In summary, despite seeming use of Disney's presentation doesn't actually reveal what its Star Wars movies have covered and the cost of the purchase. Aside from the loss, the accolades for the lowest, it goes on to say, the accolades for the lowest profit and ROI multiple in the Disney Star Wars series goes to The Rise of Skywalker, even though financial statements revealed that its costs were below the production budgets. Its $112.4 million bottom line brings the total net profit of the five Disney Star Wars to $1.2 billion, which is $2.8 billion short of the purchase price of Lucasfilm. Bear this in mind. It's a little surprising that Disney's presentation didn't work out the return on its acquisition of Lucasfilm by using the profits of the movies. It has still got a long way to just break even.
And as we all know, Solo lost money. We know that. We have known that since the movie came out. And we have suspected that all of them have lost money, and now we're getting confirmation of it. We've been saying it all along, but the Pixie Dusters and the Raylos have been out there saying, no, that's not true. Well, okay. Here's the proof.
They also lost $134.2 million at the box office on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
They had to take a tax write-off on Willow,
which they poured $100 million into.
Yep. That definitely lost money.
Star Wars movies, the jewel of Lucasfilm's crowns, and generate the lion's share of the revenue.
All the lesbian enthusiasts keep coming out going, why did they have to take this away from us? We love these
They're expecting a spinoff series.
You can write your own fan fiction about it. I'm sure you are anyway, because you're the only people that were interested.
Now it says, with several Star Wars movies in the pipeline, Disney has a chance to get its money back through their box office profits. The films have rediscovered the magic formula to appeal to fans, but aren't yet a force to be reckoned with for investors. I take contention with that last thing. The Mandalorian, I think, at first rekindled fan goodwill, but
they went out of their way to kill it. Which brings me to Jesse's point. I feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall at this point, wondering why do they keep making the same damn mistakes? Again, it's because they have allowed neo-Marxists to take over the company who don't care about profit. They only care about messaging. They want to destroy, just like we've been talking all evening.
It's everything. It's Warhammer.
They don't care about profit.
It's Star Trek. It's everything.
They care about destroying culture, destroying franchises, destroying everything you love, so that they can bring about their new neo-Marxist world where everyone dresses in brown shirts and stands in line to get bread handed to them for free but it's not free, and you're probably going to end up starving to death. This is what they want. They want you to stop going to these franchises, stop spending money on it. And at least in that regard, I am more than happy, yeah.
Here's what the article is saying. The money that the sequel trilogy made us now not recap the costs they had of buying Lucasfilm. But Lucasfilm was very expensive for them to buy, and the idea was, well, we'll make tons of profits from Star Wars to make that a good purchase. But they still haven't.
Well, and again, Samuel Proctor, these are the things that they say. They word things in a way that makes it sound like they're being profitable when it's all bullshit. It's all smoke and mirrors.
I mean, this is Forbes that wrote
when you hear them say this movie was made the most money of any sci-fi film released on a Wednesday at Christmas time, featuring a person of color, who was born after, 2012 or something. I mean, they put on so many qualifiers. Oh, it sounds great. It actually did the worst of all movies in the world, but it's the only one that fits the criteria they've described, Or they say it made this much in this regard, but they don't tell you about how much money they put into it, and how much they put into marketing, and how much it went into reshoots. This is what we've been saying about this stuff all along, and the Raylos, of course, won't pay any attention to that. I wonder if George Lucas gets a small heart attack every time Disney makes a mistake. Nope, apparently not, because he came out in favor of Iger just recently. Wow. Remember?
Yeah.
George Lucas does not give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
He got his money. He's done. He might get residuals on things every time they release something or an action figure sells. That's all he cares about.
Troy, someday Disney is going to get a shit together, maybe make animated versions of the original Star Wars trilogy and the original Indiana Jones films the same quality.
They won't last that long. You don't realize this article is saying a whole lot more than I think people realize. This is what I've been saying about Disney for a long time, and I am a little bit more bold than even Valiant Renegade on this. He's very conservative in what he says. I have no problem just expressing my opinion. Disney is going bankrupt. They are in an Enron situation where they are cooking the books to make it look like they're profitable, but they are not. And the only thing that's going to save them is if next year, and it's going to happen, Nelson Peltz comes out and buys them out. He came very close this time, and no one expected him to. He came closer than he had any business doing.
Oh, wow. Indiana Jones, that's a lot worse than Solo, a Star Wars story.
We just talked about that $130 million that it lost last week. How does
Kathleen Kennedy still have her job? I don't understand this. I don't.
She must be really good with her lips. That's all I can say.
Anyway, let's move on to the next article.
She's good at talking her way out of getting fired. What do you think I mean?
Who's Nelson Peltz? He's the one that was he's an investor in Disney that is trying to get rid of Iger.
Yeah. He
wants Disney to make money. That's his main focus.
He's a guy who owns a lot of stock in Disney, who is good friends with a lot of people that have been screwed over by Disney. And they're going to end up taking over Disney.
So here we go. Next article, Shang-Chi. I don't know why I used this. Yeah. I don't know why. Well, we're on to Marvel now.
You might as well, because no one's buying the damn toys.
Okay. I figured there's some exciting news coming up, right? Which you seem to be very doubtful,
Shang-Chi 2. Let's talk about Shang-Chi 2, which ironically, we didn't mention that one as a movie that was coming up in our talk last Friday. Why was that?
Well, it wasn't in the Marvel list, but maybe it's going to be a filler movie that whoever screen.
Oh, maybe. Let's see what the article has to say about it.
Simu Liu has addressed speculation that Marvel Studios may be dropping Shang-Chi from its upcoming release schedule, putting viewers' minds at ease. Marvel Studios star Simu Liu addressed the rumors that Shang-Chi 2 could be canceled, as Liu's titular hero hasn't been Hasn't been since 2021. There's a missing word there. Simu Liu debuted as Shang-Chi in Phase 4's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, a powerful and representative project that provided answers to questions from the beginning of the MCU. Zhu Wenwu was revealed to be the leader of the Ten Rings, the organization that took Tony Stark captive in Iron Man.
What are you trying to say, Boomer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard whispering, and I didn't know if it was whispering to me. The
No, it
organization.
has nothing to do with you. I was just Nutty's got something going on. I was just making sure she was okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Sometimes we got to take care of personal stuff. I'm
fine.
sorry, everybody. I love you all, but I love my wife more.
It's okay. It's
just so you know where you stand. I don't want you to feel hurt.
I didn't actually watch.
I was weighing a package. She got nosy.
I did, she went back by the barn, and she's like, I had to weigh this package. I'm like,
okay.
I didn't know there was a scale back by the barn.
We're pushing 11 now. Let's keep this rolling. Listen to me. I didn't realize, I didn't watch Shang-Chi. I kept thinking it was terrorists that were working in conjunction with the bad guy from
that would have made for a better story.
That was the story.
Oh, okay.
That was the what's his name, Stain, the Jeff Bridges character, okay, who made the Titanium Man.
Obadiah, yeah.
Obadiah, yeah. Oh, and he was the one that was working with those terrorists, and these were war on terror style terrorists. I won't get into further detail. That's what it was.
I never saw the movie. I didn't care, and this is exactly why.
And now they're tying this into this. Okay, not much has been. I don't care about the movie. Okay, not much has been revealed about Shang-Chi's MCU future following his debut in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, leading some to speculate that the highly anticipated sequel may be canceled. After Disney CEO Bob Iger's recent comments, this may have become even more likely, but during a recent exchange on Threads, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings star Simu Liu confirmed that the sequel is still in development. Liu stated, I promise it's happening, confirming that Marvel Studios' Shang-Chi 2, which will be directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, is still in development for MCU's future.
Sure, James.
That's good enough for me.
Real quick, as long as we have this up, I do want to make this is a Hasbro figure, and you'll notice on the good side, great articulation, a lot of points of articulation and swivel and stuff, but some of the details just suck. Why is that? If you look at his elbow, above the elbow, he's got a pin in there that's black. Why wasn't that red? That is so stupid. The fans get pissed about these kinds of details. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, you're right. Make it red to match the shirt.
Exactly.
Yeah, that does make sense. Maybe that's part of the costume, and there's a little black dot there on the costume in the movie. Huh?
It would be funny if they actually. I would love to see a superhero costume made up with little things where the rivets would be on an action figure.
It's funny,
and then you're like, hey, it's accurate.
Shang-Chi 2 Electric Boogaloo. Yes, highly anticipated.
Thank you. Making reference to last week's. Watch 2 weeks ago. Watch
highly anticipated. What? Yes, highly anticipated.
Yeah, no.
Don't be.
This is the same guy that came out during the run up to the first movie and bitched at fans, calling them istophobes. You know what? He can go stand on the bread line too.
He also showed sympathies for a certain group of predilections, like the people that worked at Nickelodeon. Anyway, let's move on. We don't forget. Next,
not to mention ties to a country that he may very much resemble. The people from that country. Just saying.
The only way they could save this is if Captain Marvel is the big bad. At this point, like she's like okay.
That would be so funny. Yes.
Here we go. Oh, Sony in talks to team with Apollo in bid for Paramount. Paramount's not in good shape right now.
No, we just so this is to a degree. This is kind of a follow up to an article from was it last week or the week before, where Paramount's stocks have been relegated to junk status.
That's bad, right?
The market.
Junk.
Oh, it's very bad. Yeah,
that sounds like as bad as it gets.
In fact, it is worse. it is worse than being worth nothing, because you could go in and for a few pennies you could buy up the whole company. The problem is you couldn't afford the debt that comes with it. That's why no one will take Paramount.
What can you do with Star Trek at this point, even if you're another studio? It's like they...
Wait, just real quick. Let's highlight Sashi's comment is, I love this. As an Asian, I never gave him a vote to speak for Asians. Netter says that all the time. Every time some stupid fourth wave feminist comes out with some stupid shit take, she's like, you don't speak for me. Not hashtag not all women. So I guess for Hasashi we can say hashtag not all Asians, right?
Yes, I guess so. Plus, that's a very large group, a very diverse group of many different countries.
It really is. We always assume that the Asian just means Chinese or just means Japanese. Do you realize that Asian also means, well, Russian? It also means Indian. Did you know that?
Yeah, Thailand, Singapore. It's many different countries over there. Korea.
Right.
Remember those rumors 8 years ago about how Sony was a target for acquisition? No more. Still don't say merger yet. Deadline has confirmed that Sony Entertainment CEO Tony Vinciquerra has been in talks with Apollo Global Management about making a go for Paramount. Yeah, I'm not surprised. This, despite Skydance Redbird Capital being in exclusive talks with Paramount Global's major
Good night,
major share.
Matanui, and yes, Sashi, hashtag not all Asians.
Good night, Matanui. The Apollo and Sony plan reportedly is an all-cash one for outstanding stock in Paramount, in total making the studio private through a joint venture, per the New York Times in a story today. It's not clear how Sony would be involved or if it's merely in management expertise. Our understanding at this point is that Apollo is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Paramount's beaten down stock jumped 12% in after-hours trading today as investors process the scenario. There recently had been more enthusiasm for the Apollo bid, which at one point was reported at $26 billion takeover private offer, than that of David Ellison to Skydance. No, this is funny that Skydance was considering. Are they trying to say Skydance was trying to take over Paramount?
At one point, there was talk.
That makes sense because they're the ones making all the movies that do well over at Paramount, like Mission Impossible.
And let me tell you, but see, this is where it runs into problems related to what Geek Flag with Nate Knows is saying. He says Paramount will probably end up selling off IPs because no one wants to buy the company as a whole. So he's referring directly to what you were just talking about with Skydance. Skydance was looking to buy Paramount. Why? Because, of the movies they're making with Paramount. And then they're looking at things like Star Trek, which is basically an anchor around their ankles. The Paramount's ankles, I mean. And they're going, but we don't want Star Trek. We really don't want it. It's not worth it. And what Paramount was trying to do is inflate their value because of Star Trek. And everyone's going, no, that is not value added. That's a value taker. And so a lot of people are saying what Nate is saying. Well, then they should just sell these things off separately if they think they're so valuable. But the thing is, they can't because the IPs are valueless. And come on, anyone with half a brain can tell you if your company is valueless, it probably is because your IPs are valueless.
They've not been building them up.
If your IPs are valuable, your company's going to be valuable. That's kind of how business works.
Listen, there is the valuable brand recognition of Nickelodeon. Oh wait. That's not.
Oh yeah, with the big foot logo.
They've been getting a beating in the thing. Does anybody want to touch Nickelodeon right now? Would you think anybody would want to touch Nickelodeon right now?
I wouldn't want anyone to think that I would touch Nickelodeon. I mean the stigma that would go with that.
Of course, yes. Sony's involvement would have another wrinkle, especially for the traditional film and TV sectors, as two Hollywood majors are potentially operations backgrounds in television have held executive posts in both CBS. While there's a disdain among some in Hollywood about private equity getting their hands into conglomerate and breaking it up, Sony-Apollo partnership is a different story. There's plenty for the Culver City lot to dream about here. Long billed in the streaming era as an arms dealer in content as it avoided the billion startup costs of an OTT service, Sony and Paramount Plus would have direct access to one. Remember what we said years back, how Sony was staying out of the streaming wars?
Yep. Yeah, and that's, all the better, because I still think, and a lot of people are starting to say this, Sony can make their money on licensing. License Sony films to, I don't know, Netflix,
Who's going to end up with Star Trek? Just give it to Disney. They can have Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Star Wars, and just...
nobody can definitively answer that. That's like saying who's going to win the election in November and stuff like that. But best case scenario is exactly one of the theories that Doomcock has proposed. One of the things that Paramount was apparently looking at doing behind the scenes is consolidating all of Star Trek into a kind of separate sub-company. All the properties of Star Trek, from the original series up through the J.J. Abrams stuff, you throw it all into one company, and whoever gets it can do whatever the fuck they want with it.
You know who gets to buy Star Trek? Who gets to own it? It's Bad Robot. It's yours.
Yeah. I mean, it's worthless.
Here,
well, so is Bad
Robot.
Make
money on your own with it instead of borrowing other people's money to make stuff with it. Give me a break. Well, there's a... Okay, so... Sony Apollo didn't know.
But here's the problem with that. Going back to Nate's previous comment about that, Star Trek is completely worthless. So you take it all, you put it all into one basket, but no one wants to buy the basket. That's the problem.
Star Trek. I
always going forward because we can't find reverse. Yeah.
Ghostbusters. Speaking of Sony.
Oh yeah, sorry, I gotta.
It's okay. I don't have anything left to say about that. I think that someone's going to buy Paramount. I think they're toast. I think them getting involved in streaming was the stupidest thing they could have done.
Absolutely.
I think they should have licensed out their shows to other streamers.
Not only that,
they'd be solvent right now.
They made the same mistake that Disney did and all the others. They if you are going to do it, you got to do it. You got to jump into it whole-assed, not half-assed. You create your Paramount network. You better put everything up there. You better have every Star Trek episode, every Star Trek behind the scenes, every Star Trek, everything, and it should be there at all times.
They didn't even include. Go ahead. Huh? They didn't even include Showtime with it at first.
Yeah. Yeah,
HBO with HBO Max, at least. Hey, this is Max. You get all the HBO stuff with the Warner Brothers. It was. They were at least combining stuff.
And we said the same thing about Disney. Disney should have put every movie from their back catalog in there. Every movie they were putting out. Everything Star Wars. Everything Marvel. Everything. And then when they bought up 20th Century Fox, everything 20th Century Fox should have been on there. As soon as they did that, they should have said, okay, Hulu gets all the 20th Century Fox stuff. All the Disney stuff is going to be here. You can have a bundle package of these two, and you get everything. And people would have looked at that and gone, "Wow, they're
an affordable bundle."
Yeah, and they're offering more than anyone else. And they would have, and we said this way back in 2021, I think we did an episode about this, saying
streaming wars. Yes,
they would have won the streaming wars. It would have been like dropping the nuke and saying, "We're here now, guys. Come get Disney Plus," and it would have worked. And they effed that up too.
But Paramount, I'm sorry, I think they're the biggest losers in all of this. I mean, I don't know if AMC Plus is doing worse, but Paramount just nothing.
They may be the biggest losers. Disney has had the farthest to fall, so they have fallen the farthest. But right now,
I don't know why Paramount got involved in this.
Paramount doesn't have the Disney size to begin with, so yeah.
I mean, they could have... never mind.
Ghostbusters is a much happier article. Let's go on.
Ghostbusters teased to return to Universal Orlando this summer. You like Ghostbusters? Yes, we do. Okay,
I absolutely do, yeah.
Earlier this year, news of the Ghostbusters return to Universal Orlando began to spread following the theme park's acquisition of a 1959 Cadillac. In today's update, Universal has just teased a summer attraction hinting at Ghostbusters and a number of other film franchises. The short clip posted at Universal Orlando's results, various social channels showcases an old box buried in the office, adorned with a sign that reads, "Do not open until summer 2024." The box includes a clock, a red hoodie, an onion, a container of noodles, glitter, a landline telephone, shark teeth, and some green slime. As fans decipher what each means, it's apparent that the slime, with the caption, "Who should we call about this?" is a clear nod to Ghostbusters. So what exactly does this mean? At this time, there's no official answer. However, there have been rumors of a summer parade series, which would make sense given Universal's recent need for a 59 caddy. Alternatively, or even additionally, there's also speculation that with Ghostbusters celebrating its 40th anniversary year, the franchise could take over Universal's tribute store. Again, nothing has been confirmed, but we'll continue to update, so stay tuned. Ghostbusters history at theme parks spans over 30 years, with the opening of the Ghostbusters Spooktacular in June 1990. That was a really cool, like, live show. That's sort of what it was. It was like one of these, like the audience, like they call for a kid volunteer and like they do something with, like, I don't know if they put like the thing they had on Rick Moranis in the first movie. The thing with all the spikes. I wonder if they put that in the kid or something. I don't know, but
so what I saw, I haven't looked at it too closely, but the alarm clock is a Ghostbusters prop. I can't remember if it was on Janine's desk or if it was on the bedside next to the guys when they would wake up and hear the alarm and drop down the pole. The phone, of course, that's Janine's phone. I can't remember what else was it. Well, the slime is obvious. There's a lot of deep dive, not quite very obvious Ghostbusters items there, but I've noticed that a lot of the channels that are talking about this are using graphics from the old Universal exhibit, the show that they did, which I think we talked about that on a previous show, that I had gone to see that at Universal Studios theme park, and that was a great show hosted by Tully, the Rick Moranis character.
They could redo that, or maybe update it with the newer characters too. They could go either way, right? I mean, they could.
Absolutely, they could, but it depends on, because there was a lot of there was this big animatronic of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
I remember that. Yeah,
it was all built into a mock-up of the firehouse. I mean, it was there was a lot there. The only reason to rehash or redo or whatever is if they still have that infrastructure. If they don't,
no, probably
they might as well just do something completely.
It'll probably be something completely new. You're right. They probably got rid of it. To be fair, I know they kept it around for a while, but they do update the parks. But now they can update it again. Now that Ghostbusters.
I'll tell you what, though, the way Ghostbusters works, they actually could get away with recreating the original one,
sure,
and having a different show, having more than one Ghostbusters show. If that, and we're not saying that's what they're doing. It does sound like maybe they're going to do some kind of mock-up. It's going to be part of their parade thing or whatever. May not be as big as we're thinking, but this is Universal. They are the far and away the competition and blowing out Disney. So that's why we're looking ahead to some incredible stuff. And one last thing about Ghostbusters, I did want to say that article came from Ghostbusters News. They are my go-to for all news Ghostbusters related. Ghostbustersnews.com and Ghostbusters News here on YouTube as well.
Definitely.
Not a sponsored, thing. I'm just sharing because I really, really like.
I have to read this. I wish Disney would give up on the streaming and go back to cable. Next week we'll discuss that. That's all I'm going to say on that comment.
Yeah, we've got something coming on that as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But now we're going to wrap up with this was a surprising
piece
little
of good
story.
News, yeah,
this was a surprising story. You're
kind
of
like a real world, like good old days in action in a way.
This
right?
is a bizarre to me because this this shatters some narratives going around
Yup.
about why Shrek 2 makes us all feel old by once again outperforming at domestic box office. How is this possible? This is an old movie. I mean, I got the Blu-ray on my shelf of this movie. I can watch it whenever I want, but people, maybe parents, wanted to take their kids to go see this movie in a theater.
I think the message is very, very clear here. It is, no, cinema isn't dead. The only reason people are staying away from cinema is because there's nothing playing at the cinema anyone wants to see. I was actually surprised by how few of the movies we talked about on Friday I had any interest in.
Yeah. But I'll read from the article, though. The Millennial Classic. What do I mean by Millennial Classic? Does that mean it came out in the year 2000?
Yeah, it came out, 2000
okay.
and beyond, yeah.
Okay, Shrek 2 is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, making way to make us all feel old.
Yeah.
And to commemorate the occasion, DreamWorks re-released the film in theaters this weekend. The movie appears to have paid off, with the animated sequel delivering healthy figures at the domestic box office. First released in 2004, Shrek 2 is among the most successful animated films of all time, having grossed over $440 million domestically and nearly $950 million worldwide in its original run. The weekend, the movie was re-released in over 1,500 domestic theaters, grossing $1.3 million with a per-theater average of nearly $900. Shrek 2 finished in the top 10 of the domestic box office charts. That's why this is interesting. Just a few places behind fellow DreamWorks release Kung Fu Panda 4. With this, the film's global gross now stands at $936 million. Shrek 2's $1.3 million haul just over 3 days is greater than the total revenue generated by Pixar's Luca, Turning Red, and Soul in the recent theatrical debuts.
That is killer. Just the way that they put that. The fact that it's true, that is just...
This old movie, 20-year-old animated movie, did better than your newer Pixar movies, all three of them combined.
All three combined.
The three films are released directly on Disney+.
This is literally DreamWorks saying, we could literally take something from our back catalog, release it in theaters, and it's going to do well, better than your three most recent new films.
They could do this. I mean, they don't have to because they have enough stuff coming out, but they made a point that Despicable Me 4 is going to be competing with Inside Out 2 this summer. And I know which one you'd rather see.
And this, by releasing Shrek 2, this is the shot across the bow saying, you're done. You are done.
Yeah. So I don't know. Shrek 2 is a good example of a well-made sequel. Yeah, I need to watch all of them in order. I've seen a couple of the Shrek movies. I really loved that last Puss in Boots, but I did recently rebuy those because I really loved that last Puss in Boots movie that came out. I thought it was a very high-quality animated movie. I don't want to spoil it for you when you're going around to watching it, but it's just... I don't know. And notice that there's a trend going on lately. People are watching old TV shows now.
Yep.
People are now going back catalogs of games and stuff.
It is why we spend so much time on our good old days. Because I do think there is an appetite for that out there.
Hold on a second. We'll discuss this next time. Disney is planning to re-release the original Star Wars trilogy in theaters. Okay, I'm very curious about this.
I guarantee you there'll be the McClunky versions.
Wouldn't it be funny if it's like Star Wars coming out in theaters, the versions that you remember seeing in 1970s as a making fun of Lucas's? These are versions you've never seen. Remember, this would be like the versions you want to see.
Yeah.
To be fair, some of the added stuff in Empire wasn't bad. I didn't agree with all the changes he did in those special editions, but like adding the flying things in the back of Cloud City, I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example of a good idea executed poorly.
Yeah.
There were other things like the Hoth battle where they cleaned up the special effects
things
so that you didn't have the background showing through the support struts and things like that,
I made the argument that Doctor Who did this well, where they would do the updates, but not in such a way that it ruined the feel of the original show, where it was too intrusive. Like with this Earth Shock, when the Cybermen, they didn't have the effects right for when the shots fired would hit the person at the same time, like they were out of sync. They would sync them up and make them look cleaner.
I'll tell you what, who did it the best? Who? This one will shock you. When they did the special editions of the original Star Trek, the original series.
Yes.
They did it perfectly because it was, well, of course they did the whole clean it up, high def it, fix the colors and stuff so it looked sharp.
They improve some of those.
But then they would go in and what they would do is they would recreate the exterior shots and stuff. Yeah. And you would get different angles and stuff like that.
You'd get Klingon ships where they didn't have them yet on the original series.
Exactly. Yeah. Or some shots where they had ships that you couldn't even see. They were blurry in the distance. Now you can actually see them. It was really brilliant, and they pulled in Rick Sternbach and Mike Okuda on that, and they said, well, our intent was to not go too far with it. We wanted
that's the idea.
In fact, there was one great. It's actually my favorite element. It's from the episode The Arena. You guys all know, even if you're not a Star Trek fan, you know this. Exactly. Kirk fighting the Gorn, right? And the first time you see the Gorn, he comes forward, he's going, right? And he's got these big microphone eyes, right?
Yes.
That are completely unblinking, except now they blink. And it's literally, excuse the pun, blink and you'll miss it thing. It's just one blink in the whole, because he's only on in any given shot, he's only on camera for like, I don't know, a few seconds, and you see this blink and you have to back up and say, did I just see what I thought I saw? And it's like, I'll be damned, he blinked his eyes. That was just brilliant. Now there are some really diehard fans that kind of got their feathers ruffled a little bit by it, because it was like, wait a minute, they've said that those were actually eye covers, and that it's not, those aren't their eyes. It's like, you know what? Screw you. This was good. Nothing in canon ever said that.
But I will even defend Paramount. Apparently, oddly enough, apparently the Blu-rays that you buy, not the DVDs you buy, but you could buy the Blu-rays of these special episodes, and you can actually flip back and forth between the original and the newer effects.
Doctor Who did the same thing.
So I think you should still keep the old versions for the fans that want to see them. But I do like the changes. With Star Wars, though, I think I agree with Samuel Proctor. It's an insult to the people that worked on those original effects.
Disney, if you had any freaking marketing intelligence, which we know you don't, but if you did, instead of releasing, like the original series of the original 3 Star Wars movies in a box set or whatever, you do each movie individually in a box set. You do a 3 or 4 disc set for episode 4, and each disc is a different version of that movie. The original theatrical release, the special edition, the special edition, the McClunky version,
Just like Warner Brothers did with Blade Runner on DVD.
Yes.
They gave us all 4 versions, and those discs are now rotting, you sons of...
Yes, exactly.
That was a major release. This is what kills me, though. I kept thinking it was some of these old movies like The Gangsters, which is still not okay.
You're
but
right.
Even some of these, that was a major release, the Blade Runner remaster.
I still haven't checked my copy of that. And what I got to do is I got to check the voiceover version. The original theatrical release.
Still get the Blu-ray.
As long as that's still good, I'm good.
Because I ended up getting, a friend got it for me on Blu-ray, so I upgraded. But I didn't even realize at the time. But yes, the original theatrical version, because you're not happy with Ridley Scott tinkering.
I really, really am not. I can't even stand Ridley Scott at all anymore. So screw that. As long as you have it up on screen, I did want to ask you. I used the illustration from the article. For that upper left, Lara Croft.
Yeah, that's from the game, I think. Yeah,
it is from the game. Okay,
yeah, because
when I saw this, I was thinking, why the hell does she have pinups of herself in her locker room? That's weird.
It could also be, I don't know the context of this scene from Tomb Raider 3. By the way, like I said, you can switch between the old graphics or the new graphics, or basically graphics that look like the old graphics in this remastered version. I think it's also possible that she was in someone else's locker room. You understand? Like maybe she's on an adventure and she's changing outfits and then sees someone has a pic of her on the wall. I think it's just a wink at the audience too, but I don't think this is in her. I could be wrong. Maybe it is in her own locker room, but I think maybe she's like maybe in a different country and then someone had her pinned up on the wall, which would be kind of funny actually, right?
You know what?
People didn't know about her.
Yeah. I should ask Michael French. He would know. I'll ask him what the context of that is. Maybe he can answer.
He'll know, because this is in the original Tomb Raider 3. They're just so they're hardly recognizable from the original magazine version. So in this remastered version, they were able to basically clean it up, and this is the version. This is what the people in the original game probably would have wanted to show you if the PlayStation 1 had been more powerful to put the actual images up. But James Cameron is also notorious revisionist, remakes movies. Now he uses AI.
Death of the author.
Joe, no.
Death of the author.
I heard.
Put it out and be done with it.
No, he's using AI to artificially upscale. I heard what he did with these recent remasters, because I was waiting for a True Lies remaster. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother picking that up now. And this is a disaster, because I'm sorry, you have companies like Severin, who I'm a big fan of, and they put out a remastered version of Suspiria, where they went to Italy and got the original cinematographer. Can you come over and make sure that this is being done right? We'll hire you to make sure that this remaster is going through the best possible color timing and everything else. And they brought him over, and it's a stunning print, so good that even the European DVD manufacturers, I think they licensed the printout from Severin. This particular print of the movie.
No, I have version. I have heard from Robert Meyer Burnett what he went through working on the restorations on the Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it's like you don't cheap out. Either you do it or don't do it.
And it took them a while to get this out. And this wasn't even them having to add in new effects. They were just, because of course it's practical for Suspiria, they were just trying to make it, clean it up and make it restore to its original luster that you would have seen in the original.
I'll be honest with you though, this whole AI thing for upscaling and stuff, maybe they should friggin' do that over on the Buffy. Redo Buffy using
Buffy
AI.
Was a disaster. They cited on one stream, I said TNG was an example of a restoration done perfectly, done right. Buffy was considered a disastrous restoration.
But I'll tell you, using AI would still not be great, but it would be better than what Buffy did. And I'll tell you, it would also, the AI would be perfect for exactly what needs to happen. What they did with Buffy, and you know what, actually Tom Connors is much better, more articulate about this kind of stuff because he understands the technology better. But they went from full frame to widescreen. And in doing, don't do
that because you're going to say.
Because what they ended up doing is they end up showing you what's off camera. When they filmed this, they filmed it for the TV, and literally right off screen was some guy, holding a boom or, whatever the doodah is for the special effect, or whatever that's supposed to be off camera. And that stuff all kind of shows up in the shots now. But with AI, you know what you could do? You could go in and you can block off the part that you want to add, and AI can generate, because this is what AI does, generate what could have been off screen in a fairly seamless way.
Yeah.
That's what this generative AI is actually good for.
Well, it's interesting.
And then go in and make sure that everyone has the right number of fingers and stuff too.
Yeah, well, there's that. The X-Files remaster was interesting because we discovered that the X-Files was actually shot in widescreen. It's just it was shot in such a way so it could be cropped into a full frame ratio and would look normal. So they argue with the remastered version, you might see a little more room on the side of Mulder's face than you would, but at least it doesn't look like they're cutting anything out. You understand? Right. They also had to replace the effects, but they had to replace them in such a way that they looked like the effects used on the original show. The same thing they did with TNG.
The same, not the same exactly, but basically the same idea with Star Trek: The Next Generation. They filmed it on at least the earlier episodes. I don't know about the later ones. They filmed it on film, and when you have an original film master, you can
they probably do the whole thing.
You can transfer that to HD very easily. If you film it at a low resolution, video quality, you have a problem.
Yeah, if it's 35 millimeter, from what I can told, it gets pretty close to 4K, and that actually you might even just be able to do it at 4K with 35 millimeter. I know they made it. They pointed out that the original Ghostbusters movie could be brought up to 4K, or at least something close to 4K, because it used practical effects. Yeah. And but whereas the Marvel movies like Iron Man, like the original Iron Man,
Yep.
Those are not true 4K, at least not in the effects scenes, because those effects were shot for just 2K. So if you get it in 4K, it's mainly just an upscale. That's what I heard.
So the obvious question people are going to have is, well, then why aren't they still filming in 35 millimeter? I'll tell you why. Because it's expensive. And because of the way they film now, they don't plan it out well enough.
Yeah.
They want to be able to have it digitally and erase it and start over again. And
yeah. But you know what you know who the creator of Breaking Bad? You know what he did when Breaking Bad was airing? He insisted from the get-go, this will be shot in HD, but with 4K HD TV. And he says, we are future-proofing this. And back then that was pricier, but he insisted on it. And I guess he's reaping the benefits now. Yeah.
Well, the other thing you do is you get on set and you don't film. You let people do their, get their kinks out, do a walkthrough, do whatever, and say, okay, this one is for real. Let's get it and get it once. Now, that's unrealistic, but you have to have that kind of mentality. No screwing around. No, let's film this scene, and if it doesn't work, we'll do a different scene. No, figure out the movie, shoot it, and be done with it.
Yep.
If you can't do it, if you can't change something in editing, then you shouldn't have done it at all.
Yeah. 35 millimeter most of them has a higher quality image than 4K. It's more microscopic chemical pigment than the amount of pixels in 4K. That's interesting. That makes sense, actually. Okay. All right. It's late. We're both tired.
It is.
But this was a good stream. And frankly, I like the fact that all these classic movies can now be preserved, whereas maybe some of the newer stuff is going to have a harder time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, we want everything to be preserved, even the bad stuff. There has to be a record of how bad things were, so we knew not to repeat our mistakes, right?
True.
So what are we coming up at 5 after midnight? We have The Other Side of Midnight with deleted scenes.
Yep, and he's going to have a very special guest. It's going to be Curtis Selby. You should know Curtis Selby because you have been seeing him on all of our channels.
He needs to find his Blu-ray player.
Yep, he is good people, and definitely looking forward to hearing what he has to say in about a half hour.
And then we have tomorrow. You're going to do a double feature on your channel, are you not?
Yep, Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can.
Yes.
Clint Eastwood, Clyde the orangutan.
You can watch along live, okay,
Yep.
and see these classics. Clyde, and you'll see Clint Eastwood with an orangutan in a truck on the road. Is there anything else you need in a movie?
Yes, a beautiful blonde, and we also have one of those in the movie too.
Yes, his on again, off again real life romance, actually.
Yeah, I just saw a very interesting documentary about that. I'll probably talk a little bit about that.
They seem like an interesting fit. I'll say this. I don't know why her name has escaped me at the moment. And you can also check deleted scenes channel.
Sandra Locke.
Sandra Locke. I think he'll also be doing his live at the mystery movie night at the Regal.
Right.
So you can always
exactly.
But like I said, you want to catch that live rewatch though. You're gonna have a Cosby link up, right?
I will have the Cosby link so that you can watch along with us because there's another one where it is streaming, but it's only streaming on the one service, and if you don't have that, you're kind of out of luck. And so either you have your physical media or watch live with me, and you can follow along at Cosby.
Then on Tuesday, you can also watch along with us on Sparkwood and 21.
Yep, live from Sparkwood and 21. We're coming down to the last 5 episodes of season 2 of Twin Peaks, and it's ratcheting up from here.
I hated this when I was younger because I knew the show was coming to an end.
I know,
and I knew it wouldn't. I knew there'd be questions, and even when I watched it again, I'm like, I actually feel uncomfortable watching it, realizing even though now we finally have the follow-up series, it still makes me uncomfortable because I remember those memories of thinking, when are we going to get answers?
Yes. Well, what's interesting is I don't think this is a spoiler. I think most people know this. They they revisit the dream sequence where an older looking Dale Cooper is in the well, I'm not sure if he's. There's still debate over whether or not that's the lodge or whether that's the threshold or whatever. But he's in that red room with the parquet floor, and Laura Palmer, or an image of Laura Palmer, comes up and whispers to him, and she says, "I'll see you again in 30 years." And sure enough, 30 years later, we got season 3.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting when we get to that too. There may still be questions even after season 3. There'll be fewer, but there'll still be some. Yes.
But you know what? We will we'll get some of our season 2 questions answered. We will have some great theories, and I think from there we will. There's still going to be stuff to look at because we're going to look at some of David Lynch's other works, which are, at least tangentially related to Twin Peaks. Gives you great insight into what his thoughts were. And so you may answer some of your questions. And we will be looking at a couple of fan films that fill in some blanks too.
By the way, for those of you who have seen season 3, please keep in mind that the Deleted Scenes has not seen it yet. So please refrain from talking about season 3 because we're going to be watching it live. This will be the first time he's watching it as well. We don't want to spoil it for him. Okay, so there we go. Yeah. And that brings us to Thursday, which is Netter's Network Thursdays Things.
Yep. Thursday, Netter has a very special guest that she poached from me. Which is good because he deserves as much attention and accolades as possible. It's Andy Masterson of the Laboratory of Mayhem. He is good people. I like him a lot. That's why Netter likes him. And we'll be talking to him on Thursday.
Yes. And then Friday night, don't know if we have anything planned yet, but will be exciting regardless.
Right now, unless Age of Boomer has another one of his great ideas, I'm thinking we haven't done a Friday night free-for-all in a while.
We haven't, yeah.
I think maybe we do a Friday night free-for-all, which means I'm going to drink. You guys are going to chat at me. I'll bring up your comments, and you guys are going to lead the conversation wherever you want to.
Gotcha.
The more I drink, the easier it is to manipulate me. So that's where the fun lies. That'll be Friday night.
And then Saturday
night, this is a Netter's Network's retro cinema. We are getting a little bit retro. It kind of hurts my heart to think of this being retro, but it really is. It's Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo in Dead Heat. Do you remember that one?
Wait a minute.
If you don't remember it, you might want to join us.
Does this involve the undead?
It kinda, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
One of the main characters is undead. That's why I said it. Actually, coming after Dawn of the Dead, it kind of
it's a good follow up.
It's a good follow up.
It's kind of a zombie one. Okay.
Yep, it kind of is. It was unintentional. It just worked out that way.
No, I think that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. So. And then that'll bring us back to next Sunday, where you can catch Western Cinema Presents with deleted scenes during
all the deleted scenes all the time.
And then Unscripted with Deleted Scenes, we'll be singing the praises of Disney's new cable. I don't know what he's doing.
Oh God.
We'll be talking certainly about some cable plans Disney has next week, definitely. So yes, among other things. So we'll get there.
Yeah.
But you'll have a good week in the meantime. Be sure to catch us on these other shows, and we'll catch you next time.
Take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And hopefully I will be finally done with school by then.